All righty, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, you got Ryan Grimm guest hosting with me today. Okay, the legendary reporter from Dropsite News. I'll give that to you, Ryan. I do
on
believe
here with the legendary Cenk.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay. So we got a lot for you guys on tonight's show. Of course, things that Israel has done wrong, including Dropsite News' story about how now there's a rat infestation in Gaza, and they're biting kids and infecting them, etc. Just absolute devastation in Gaza. 467 kids trying to get out because they're sick, and Israel did not let them, so they're dead. There is no end to the monstrosities of Israel. Meanwhile, in the second hour, several of our congressmen, including Democrats, are going after my nephew because he's apparently the biggest problem in the country, but they love and support and finance genocide. So I'm going to tell you who the terrorist sympathizers are inside our Congress, although of course, actually about 94% of them are terrorist sympathizers. And then we've got Democrats fighting in the first hour here, some good guys, some bad guys, and how Israel controls our media. It's a topic that Ryan and I have talked about before, but there are two excellent examples, including an interview that Ryan did recently. So we're gonna get to all that, and on tomorrow's show at 8 o'clock Eastern, Tom Steyer is gonna join us. He's running for governor in California, and that should be a very interesting conversation. All right, but let's get started right now.
The thing that bothers me the most isn't like, I'm not asking for you to like be my friend. But you should be curious because I'm pulling 40 points ahead.
Right.
Like at least just reach out and be like, hey, what are you actually? Because they've never spoken. Ever. I've never gotten a phone call. Like no one's ever reached out. I've never talked to anybody in leadership. No one's ever been interested in which is like kind of baffling.
I actually don't think it's baffling. I think it's pretty clear. Democrats don't care about winning. They just care about serving their donors, as you're gonna see amply in this story. They backed Janet Mills, and she got clowned. And she's the governor of Maine and got clobbered by Graham Plattner. There he was on Jon Stewart's podcast and explaining that they never even reached out to figure out how he got that 40-point lead, because they don't care. All they care about is serving the donor class loyally. Win or lose doesn't matter to Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Democratic leadership. So we said that Plattner was more likely to win the primary and more likely to win the general election. Now we're gonna show you polls in a minute that show you who was right and who was wrong. Spoiler alert, Chuck Schumer is an idiot. Okay, so Janet Mills dropping out today had a long note about why she was dropping out. I'll read you a portion of it. She said, while I have the drive and passion, commitment and experience, and above all else, the fight to continue on, I very simply do not have the one thing that political campaigns unfortunately require today, the financial resources. That is why today I have made the incredibly difficult decision to suspend my campaign for the United States Senate. That's of course not true. She was getting mauled and she was gonna get humiliated on election day and she left. How do I know that's not true? Let me give you the next fact. Plattner raised $4.1 million in the first quarter of this year. That's a great number. While Mills took in $2.7 million. That's just in one quarter. AOC won her election with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that amount. But she's like corporate Democrat. She's like, oh, I'm only raising about $3 million every 3 months. Only $1 million a month. How could I win with such little resources? I didn't know that the grassroots could have more money than me. The whole thing I was banking on was I overwhelm them with money like a good corporate Democrat. Then I serve Israel and all corporations. What went wrong? Well, you could ask him. She's like, no. And if you notice, there was one thing that she left out there. She did not endorse Graham Plattner. Vote blue no matter who, unless it's a populist or anyone on the left or an outsider or someone who's clean and doesn't take corporate PAC money and doesn't serve foreign governments, in which case, get out of here. I guarantee you, if Chuck Schumer, Janet Mills will probably vote for Susan Collins, okay? The Republican in the race. If Chuck Schumer and everyone in Democratic leadership lived in Maine, I would bet and on every dollar I had that they would vote for Susan Collins over Graham Plattner, okay? So now I want to bring Ryan Grimm in here. I've got a lot more for you, Ryan, on the polls and how this race went, but what's your 2 cents to start?
Well, Schumer did come out, right, with the Democratic Party and say, okay, he's now the presumptive nominee, which makes Janet Mills refusing to get behind him kind of even more stark. I think you're right. Like, I think she will ultimately endorse him. She'll do an event with him or something. I think privately, if you could get her ballot, she's voting for Susan Collins. Like, I think I think she won't admit it, but she's doing it. And how much money does she actually need to get to what I think it was June 8th or 9th was the primary? She's Janet Mills. She's the governor. Like, she's been in Maine politics for many, many decades. Everyone in Maine knows who she is. She could not do another campaign event between now and June 9th and 8th or whatever. And if people liked her, they'd vote for her. So yeah, it wasn't money, but the fact that he was outraising her is connected to the fact that he was trouncing her on every other level.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's find out who was right and who was wrong. We go back to the beginning of this primary and we quote the legendary fearsome leader, Chuck Schumer. He said, we think that Janet Mills is the best candidate to retire Susan Collins. She's a tested 2-term governor and the people of Maine have an enormous amount of affection and respect for her. Do they, Chuck? Okay, well, when the campaign started, that was the case. Nobody had heard of Graham Plattner, although he rose up super quickly because he said he wasn't going to represent the donor class. And everybody's like, yep, that's what we want, yep. And Janet Mills is like, oh, but the donors are so precious and wonderful. I love them so much. But in the beginning, since people didn't know that, it starts out 47-37, Janet Mills on top. At that point, all the wise men of Washington are like, oh, you see that? You can't vote for an outsider. That's oh, she has a wonderful experience. She's been selling out to donors for decades. What great experience. See, she's gonna crush that guy, right? Well, is that how it turned out? Let's look at one of the latest polls in that race. Oh, yeah, that's 64-29. Plattner in the lead. That's a 35-point lead. I've seen other polls at 38 points, and it is not close. He crushed her. And the reason is obvious. The American people are looking for populists who represent voters instead of the super rich and powerful. Shocking. I swear to you that every Democrat in Washington, or almost every Democrat, is genuinely shocked by that. They're like, oh, they want us to work for them instead of precious donors? No, they're all anti-Semites. Okay, so let's see how this is going. Now, this is the New York Times talking about the race. Her decision to withdraw reflects a political environment being rapidly reshaped by a restive Democratic grassroots that is demanding a new, younger, and far more combative generation of leadership. You got that right, brother. And hey, New York Times got something right. They continue, her failure to gain traction also underscores how the mechanics of campaigns have shifted. Mills, who had insisted on that state already knew her well, struggled to break through Plattner's dominance on social media and liberal podcasts, but she did not try to match his far more robust campaign schedule. You know why? Because she thought, I'm gonna raise more money than him, and then I'm gonna buy all these deceptive ads, and I'm gonna say, he's a Nazi! All outsiders, whether they're right wing or left wing, are all Nazis, and then I'm gonna cruise to victory. And he's like, okay, run your stupid deceptive ads that don't work at all anymore, and I'll just go on the shows and tell them what I really think. Well, now Janet Mills could have obviously matched that. She could have just been like, oh, okay, I'll go on the shows. And since I have the better record and the people of Maine have such love, affection, and respect for me, as Chuck Schumer knows, then I'll easily win. Except she didn't go on any of the shows. Why didn't she? Because her record is indefensible. And Democrats think like, oh, I am above podcasts and online media. Where's my friends at MSNBC? Tell everybody to vote for me, okay? How's that working out for you, Janet? Oh, right, you're in retirement, so it's not working out at all. So Plattner did all of this, of course, without a scintilla of help from the DNC. Here he is explaining it.
Have you felt any sense of any curiosity? Has there been any, hey, Graham, I'm a more establishment guy. You seem to be resonating. What do you think is going on? Or do they view you again through the prism of insurgent this insurgent must be stopped?
As of late, past few months, there's been a lot more reach out from like individual people, kind of in the like senators. Honestly, I think there are a lot of senators now. There are a bunch of senators like Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, that whole crew. Who Martin Heinrich in New Mexico. Who like they reached out early on. Past couple months though, there has been more reach out from, I would say, more kind of like establishment folks. However, and this is the important part, not from the DSCC, not from the DNC, like nobody in the places of power remains interested.
But they're lost, dude. Like
it's so bad.
It got such a relief to hear people say things that are obviously true. We've been saying that for about 20 years on the Young Turks, where like 99.8% of Washington was like, oh, no. They're doing 4-dimensional, 8-dimensional chess. They've got this thing totally figured out. Oh, God damn it, I can't believe we barely lost to Trump again. I don't know how, but we haven't figured out. We haven't totally figured out. So now they say, oh, don't worry about Plantner, okay? We won't let that populist win. Well, we failed, but now our brothers and sisters, the lovely, awesome corporate Republicans, will destroy him, and they look like they're almost gleeful at the opportunity. So here's another quote from the New York Times. According to them, Mills told the New York Times in an interview last month that they will tear him apart if he's the nominee. Almost looking forward to it. It seemed like she was. In January, the Maine Super PAC for Senate Republicans announced its largest ever investment in Maine, $42 million to support Collins. I can't wait for them to burn all that money in a bonfire, right? Like, oh, we are running ads. He has the wrong kind of tattoo. Remember, everyone serve Israel. Okay, please burn it in a beautiful bonfire in Maine. I come and stew some lobster over it. Okay, so these are the kind of gross ads that they're gonna run that are not gonna work. Watch.
Graham Plattner blames Maine's women for getting raped because he says they get up drunk. And Plattner bragged about having a Nazi tattoo on his chest. That's the real Graham Plattner. Pine Tree Results PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Pine Tree Results, that sounds so refreshing, like a breath of fresh air. Pine trees, I bet they're for pine trees. Wait, this is weird. Our guest host here, who's one of the best reporters in the country, wrote the PAC, funded by Blackstone's CEO, Steven Schwartzman, and Palantir's Alex Karp, is putting $2 million behind this ad. So that's the surveillance state and Israel weighing in and going, now remember, they don't want to say he doesn't support Israel because then his numbers will go up another 20 points. So they're like, he kicks puppies and women, and did you know what he wrote in 1987? Okay, yeah. Hey, Janet Mills tried that. So please waste another 42 million doing that. So finally, that's gonna work, right? I mean, Schumer was right, Mills was right. That's weird. A late March poll from Emerson College showed Plattner with 48% support among likely Maine voters to Collins' 41% with 12% undecided. Looks like he's got a 7-point lead over Susan Collins, who Democratic leadership has never been able to defeat. Because do they really want to defeat her? I don't know a better Democrat than Susan Collins. And that is not a damning, that's not praise of Susan Collins, that's damning of the Democratic Party leadership. Ryan, so you broke the story about how it's an ad from the usual lobbies that have come in to weigh in on Maine. So what do you think? Is the general election going to be any different? Are the Republicans going to get him by talking about his Nazi tattoo?
I don't see how that stuff doesn't just keep backfiring. And also, all of the money they spend, I think, is also going to backfire because, and one of the other billionaires that has given to that $2 million, which will grow to 2, 3, 10, 20, 30 million by the end of it, is this guy Mark Rowan from Apollo, this private equity firm Apollo. He's also on Trump's board of peace. He's a massive donor to AIPAC. But importantly for Maine, and we wrote about this, his private equity company bought up 2 paper mills in 2 mill towns in Maine, in Jay and Bucksport. And you know how private equity works. They don't come in and say, we love this business because it's profitable and our guys went to Harvard, they're smart, they're gonna figure out how to save you a little bit of money here and there. We're going to be even more profitable and everybody's going to win. That's not what they do. They come in and they figure out legally, or borderline legally, how they can loot the place. And so what they did with these paper mills is they basically, as soon as they bought the paper mills, they forced the company to take out a $250 million loan and then pay that $250 million in a dividend to the private equity company, Mark Rowan, who gives money to this super PAC. Like, that is, somehow that's not a crime, but think about that. So you buy a company with debt. They bought it with debt. They didn't buy it with their own money. They force it to take on more debt. Then they force it to take out money. Then they take the money. Then now what happened? Now the mills aren't profitable anymore because they have this huge debt service to make. So you file bankruptcy for the paper mills. And then in bankruptcy, you take the pension funds to pay off the debts that you've rolled up. And then you sell off everything, the parts and everything else. You sell off the real estate, you just harvest the thing, and you destroy 2 towns in the process. So unfortunately for Susan Collins, one of the places that her donors did this, or 2 of the places, are 2 mill towns in Maine. So every time that they're up on the air saying this guy had a Nazi tattoo, Plattner's gonna be able to say, this is paid for by the guys that destroyed Jay and Bucksport. And now they're taking that mill and turning it into a data center, which nobody wants there. So across the board, these are incredibly, horribly unpopular policies. I'm curious, Cenk, though, do you think it's a coincidence that this long interview with Jon Stewart dropped, where Jon Stewart is like, this is who Democrats should be behind, this is what Democrats ought to be? And then right after that, Janet Mills is like, all right, I'm done. Like, it feels to me like it was actually Jon Stewart that like put the final nail in this coffin.
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to come back to it because I think it's actually very relevant to this entire phenomenon that we're seeing across the country. But I have a question for you first. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what kind of tattoos does Mark Rowan have? That's true. Yeah, I mean, if his, to find out. I mean, if his tattoos are better than Graham Plattner's tattoos, then obviously we should vote for Susan Collins. And so Plattner and his campaign managers had a press conference this evening, and they were saying that their research shows, they're like polling and everything else, shows that almost everyone in Maine knows everything about all of this stuff because of all of the coverage. Janet Mills spent millions of dollars putting it on the air, and then now Susan Collins' PAC is spending millions of dollars putting it on the air. So everybody already knows this, and his numbers just keep going up because people are sick of this thing where they find something that you said 15 or 20 years ago and say that you are now disqualified from public life. People don't want that to be the standard, and people understand that. Okay, he said things on Reddit. Well, Reddit is like, that's where people just like have conversations. So that's almost like this person said this in their dorm room. And like, you and I are old people. If somebody came to us and were like, he said this in a dorm room in 1998, we'd be like, okay, that sounds like a thing he probably shouldn't have said, but it was a dorm room in 1998. Why are you bothering me with this? Like, what does he say today? Who is he now? And so that's how that stuff comes off, I think, to anybody who's not old like us, and also to like a lot of older people who like understand how the world works today. Yeah, so I mean, things that you said 20 years ago being used to cancel you. I might be patient zero. Actually, it's in your own dorm room. That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been canceled in every kind of way, but you made the mistake of putting your dorm room comments into like a column and putting them into the paper. Yeah. Yeah, in like one of the first blogs ever. I'm like the first like YouTube partner where the first they get canceled for 20-year-old blogs, etc. Right? So they've tried this trick. No, my co-host over at Breaking Points, when she ran for Congress, they found photos of her at like a costume party that were a little risque and like canceled her. Yeah, but to be fair, you remember there was a national scandal. Yeah, 100% remember, I covered it. and defended her. And this is the oldest trick in the book. And it's weird how they never found any indiscreet pictures of Chuck Schumer or Mitch McConnell or Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or George Bush or anyone. It's so weird. The establishment apparently has no. And you're right. They can't even find anything on Epstein. They can't, come on, right? So, and by the way, guys, if you don't know, to point that Brian was making about private equity, I mean, that has devastated our country. They did it to Sears, Kmart, Toys R Us, almost every brand you know. And then they're like, oh yeah, the internet destroyed them. You know, people are just buying online. No, private equity came in and raped them, totally destroyed those businesses, those American businesses, and laughed all the way to the bank and thought, who cares if your kids don't get toys? We just robbed that place of hundreds of millions of dollars and oftentimes billions. Now, to your question, and by the way, they've become so toxic, all of these corporate goons, and they've overused the charge of Nazi so many times that I now think that people, when they hear that some candidate is being called a Nazi, they don't think the guy's an actual Nazi. They think, oh, he's an outsider that the corporate goons are attacking. I should look into him. Like, my God, what are you doing, right? So
also, I have a outside the box thought on that too. Curious for your take on this. The biggest thing that some Republicans think they have on Graham is from his Reddit post and also just kind of his politics in general. They're like, he's too far left. They're like, he's too far out the mainstream. But if they try to say that at the same time that they are constantly calling him a Nazi, feels like a regular voter is like, all right, well, I'm gonna dismiss all of this and I'm just gonna listen to the guy. So I think it actually really undercuts what they could have as a potentially, like, from their perspective, reasonable threat. Susan Collins had a statement that said something like, I look forward to, taking on this like professed communist Nazi. And people are like, I'm sure regular people are like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. How can you be both? You can't be both.
Yeah.
Okay, so never mind, I'm not gonna listen to anything you say. So I actually think in some ways, every time they mention that he's a Nazi, people are like, A, I don't believe that, but B, Nazi, Marine, like, and then you're gonna tell me he's too far left. Like, culturally, that doesn't scan.
Yeah.
So seems reasonable to me.
Right, and I made that point at least half a dozen times on the show. So is he a Nazi or is he a communist? Because I know he can't be both. And so, and even look, let's talk about the phrase that they use, right? So again, with Nazi, especially in a general election, when you're telling independents and right wingers, this guy is a Nazi. Well, they've heard that about themselves a lot, right?
Right.
And they know that it was a lie about them, or they think that it was a lie about them, right?
Even if it's true.
Right? So they're like, oh, is he one of us? And a lot of independents go, oh, does that mean he rationally opposes the genocide of Israel, right? Like, and it turns out he does, right? And so what does it mean to be too far left these days? Well, he's not doing culture war stuff. He's not doing identity politics. Right. So all that's left is economic populism. But if you're accusing him of being too economically populist, you're accidentally running an ad for him, right?
Yeah.
And so, to come back to your question about Jon Stewart, I think Jon Stewart's now an interesting avatar for a bridge between old media and new media, right? He's doing a podcast that's a new media, digital media, right? But he's mainly known for being the host of The Daily Show today, but mainly back in the day, right? So he's a trusted, figure from old media. So when Jon Stewart, and I would put one other group in this category, Pod Save America, come out against you, then it feels like a nail in the coffin. Oh, well, look, and they're wrong because those guys are now generally honest, right? And Jon Stewart 1,000,000%, and doesn't have an interest in like towing the party line. But their brain triggers, oh, even the party line, Jon Stewart was on TV, etc. Pod Save America is the Obama guys. Well, even if they've turned against me and I'm down 35 points, I guess I gotta go, right? But all of this, Ryan, leads back to let me ask it this way. If Plattner wins, what happens next? Like, I know that Democratic leadership will come out and go, oh, we are very happy, as they're like weeping. Oh, I'm so sorry, Israel. We tried to get the Republican to win, but we couldn't pull it off. Anyway, so, but they'll say that, oh, there's no lessons to be learned there, right? But how impactful do you think it'll be, given that we have a new media and everyone thinks that everyone on TV is enormous liars and we wouldn't trust them if our life depended on it? Is this going to spread like wildfire throughout the country, or are the Democrats going to, be able to put out that fire?
I think it depends. If we're living in a world where Dan Osborne also wins, let's say Ossoff wins re-election with his. I don't know if you saw his campaign ad he put out yesterday. You would love it if you haven't seen it yet. He's running on extremely economic populist issues. Sherrod Brown comes back in Ohio. Like if all the four of those happen, then it's a wrap for this party establishment's attempt to use culture war to push aside economic populism. And at that point, Democratic Party just has to lean into small donors, lean into the grassroots, and say, look, we're not getting the big donors anymore. But you know what we're gonna get? We're gonna get people, and we're gonna be able to match, not dollar for dollar with the billionaires, but enough that we're in the ball game. And it's so much more expensive to be for corruption and for something that people don't want, that if you have 20% of the money, but you're over a certain threshold, then you can beat $10 million with $2 million if you're on the side of truth and they're on the side of corruption. So I think there is a real world in which if a bunch of these candidates win on that message, and Plattner beats Susan Collins after Susan Collins beat every single establishment avatar that the party could throw at her cycle after cycle, I do think it could be transformative.
Yeah, again, another case where we were patient zero. That was our thesis when we started Justice Democrats, that you don't need to have more money, you just need to have enough money. Once you're past the threshold, then we can win, and we have. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here. When we come back, the Democratic Party tries to bury its own report telling what's wrong with the party, because God forbid they should ever fix anything. So it's an amazing story. And then Tucker Carlson versus Donald Trump. Who would you rather have as president? Fascinating story as well. We'll be right back. All right, back on the social break here. Let's go to our members on TYT.com. CB1 says, seems like these grassroots campaigns are more viable in smaller population states, but it's much tougher in the bigger states. That's a good point, actually. And California makes it much, much harder to reach voters. And it does get, but I think that like congressional races get almost no attention, but the big ones, Senate, governor, etc., still get enough attention, whether it's a small state or a big state. But an interesting point. Mongoose Dragon says, you don't become a billionaire without destroying the lives of many. Well, there's some good guy billionaires, but unfortunately there have been a number of the ones you're mentioning. Serenity Now says, Mills also just vetoed the pause on new data centers, and they add bounce bitch. Why did she do that, even though overwhelming majority of Democratic voters are against it? Because she doesn't work for them. She works for her donors. And that's why she got her ass handed to her, and I'm thrilled about it. Boomer Dragon Cat says, I'm a lot more worried about the Nazi tattoos on Keg's breath. That's of course Pete Hegseth. His tattoos about the Crusades turned out to be a lot more relevant, but you don't mention that. He's in favor of Israel, so shut up about his tattoos. Let's talk about Graham Plattner's tattoos. Okay, that's hilarious. Third Shift Zombie says on Twitch, Cenk, did you see the hit piece that The Hill did on Graham Plattner? I can't believe you ditched TYT to go on that show. Oh, I didn't ditch TYT to go on that show. It's already in DC. But I'll go on any show, you know me, brother. And I didn't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. So what? And we'll kick their ass about that story. Revelin 1 says, thank you TYT for pushing the truth and providing receipts. That's on YouTube member section. And Rose Orozco says, can we reset America the 250 years? Can we get our independence again? All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Ryan Grimm with you guys. Shout out to our new X audience. We're trying a little broadcast on X. That's kind of fun. Rose, we'll see if we keep it going. Rosa Roscoe, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. We appreciate you. Now let's go to our next story.
When you won the chairmanship in February of 25, you criticized the DNC's refusal to release their 2016 autopsy as exactly what not to do. You said, quote, was there any utility in doing that? And then promised your 2024 autopsy would be different. Your exact quote was, of course it will be released. Why did you change your mind on that?
Well, look, I mean, what I said all along, even when I ran for this position, is that we were going to focus on the things that will help us win the upcoming election.
Well, finding out what you did wrong in the last election would help you win the next election, but the problem is what they found out and what they don't want you to know. We're gonna get to that in a second. But when he became the head of the DNC, Ken Martin was talking about, oh, we gotta do autopsies and we gotta figure out what's going on. So here's more of Ken Martin going back on his word.
Why not release the full report? What's in the report that you wouldn't want
well, first off,
to publicize?
There's no smoking gun in the report. And I know that's what everyone's so eager to learn. The smoking gun. Guess what, John?
But if there's no smoking gun, why wouldn't you just release it then?
Because we want to keep the focus on the lessons. Because what ends up happening here is that people, of course, want to weaponize the report in a way to look backwards, to point fingers, place blame in a way that actually doesn't keep us focused on the upcoming election. But instead, the navel gazing of focusing backwards actually takes us backwards. We're 189 days from this election, John. What we don't need to be focused on is actually relitigating 2024. What we need to do is learn the lessons of 24 and the years preceding that can help us win this upcoming election. Guess what, John? In the third closest presidential election in the last 100 years, everything mattered. There's nothing that didn't impact that election.
But why did you spend the money going to 50 states, doing all these interviews, doing all this stuff, and doing this report in the first place, if you weren't going to release the full results of it?
All right, great line of questioning by John Favreau on Pod Save America. Check that out. And Ken Martin's responses were hilarious. Now, look, you need to learn the lessons of this last election, but that's why we're keeping them super secret. And if you ask me what they are, I'll say that's navel gazing. You're just pointing fingers. You're trying to blame people. We don't want to do any of that. We don't want to learn any of the lessons, but we want. I just said we want to learn the lessons. That's what a person who's desperately lying looks like. So now I'm going to tell you the two things that they're trying to keep hidden in a second. But first, Ryan, your 2 cents.
I mean, hearing that kind of sniveling Washington, D.C. nonsense, but from the like Fargo and Minnesota accent is just incredible. It's like, well, John, I'm sure you did actually get the true coat. And so if you don't have the true coat, your party's going to get scratched in the next election. I could go back and look at our contract that we signed, and I'm sure that right there it says that you've got the true coat. I could talk to my manager if you want a discount on the true coat. That part of it is just so like, wow. Like, oh, like this is the chair of the DNC? Like we can't even get lied to by people that we can like at least respect throughout it. I think part of it is obviously what people have said, that Gaza played a much bigger role than the party wants to admit. Also, and if you listen to them very closely, they raised $1 billion and spent it in a period of weeks, basically. That money went somewhere. That money was spent by people and people who own LLCs. Those people don't really want people knowing, wait a minute, you spent $112 million on what? Like how did this help the party at all? And where's this money? So I think Gaza is in there, but I also think it's largely like insiders being like, let's not release what we did with $1 billion in like an 8-week period. Because people are not going to be happy with what we did with $1 billion in an 8-week period.
Yeah. So Ryan got to the third secret factor that I was going to get into, which we will in a second. And you're absolutely right about Ken Martin.
Your thunder here, Jenks. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, not at all. You crazy? What am I going to keep a secret from one of the best investigative reporters in the country? Uncovered it right away. So Ken Martin used to be a progressive in Minnesota. That's why it's even more depressing. Like the minute you enter DC, your brain becomes zombified. It's happened to almost everyone who's gone there. So they're like, must help Democrats get more corporate donors. Consultants are great. Israel's the best thing on earth, okay, etc. So that's what happened to poor Ken Martin. I do actually kind of feel bad for him. So now let's go to the two other factors and we'll come back to the consultants. One factor is so bad they didn't even want to study it, right? So New York Times reported earlier last summer, Democratic National Committee's examination of what went wrong in the 2024 election is expected to mostly steer clear of the decisions made by the Biden turned Harris campaign and will focus more heavily instead on actions taken by allied groups, according to interviews with 6 people briefed on the report's progress. So in other words, like, don't, but we have to protect Joe Biden's feelings. We're still protecting Joe Biden's feelings? That gargantuan egomaniac who's like, I don't care if I have dementia. It has to be me and only me. I don't mind losing to Trump. Who cares? Destroy the country. But it has to be me. And we're protecting that son of a bitch's feelings. And Kamala Harris, well, she might run again. So her, corporate donors are like, you better not blame Kamala Harris. She was the candidate. We're not allowed to talk about what mistakes the candidate made. Yes, only allied groups, preferably progressives. Okay, wait, but progressives are on the opposite side, so okay, that doesn't help. So who are the allied groups? Well, it turns out here, I'll skip the rest of that particular report. Okay, you know what? I'll give you graphic 5 here before I get you to the second reason. People briefed on the report's progress said they had been told it would focus more on outside groups and super PACs that spent hundreds of millions of dollars aiding the Biden and Harris campaigns through advertising, voter registration drives, and turnout efforts. The problem is that they did look into those groups and what they found out was devastating. So they're like, no, it turns out those groups are super powerful too. Now we can't offend them or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anyone in Democratic Party leadership. So let's all go out there and BS and lie to everyone and say, no, we nailed it. We beat Donald Trump. Okay, here's factor number 2. Now reported by, surprisingly enough, Axios. Activists from the IMEU Policy Project told the DNC that the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel was a factor in the party's losses because it drained support from some young people and progressives. Hamid Bendas, spokesperson for the IMEU Policy Project, said that during the meeting, quote, the DNC shared with us that their own data also found that policy was, in their words, a net negative in the 2024 election. 2 other senior aides at the pro-Palestinian organization also said that the DNC had drawn that conclusion. So Ryan, they find out, yeah, it was Biden and Kamala's fault. Yeah, it was all the super PAC's faults. Yes, it was all the consultants' fault. And yes, it was our fault for kissing Israel's ass because our donors told us to, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of not just our voters, but independents were against that policy position. When you put all that together, A, it looks like they wanted to lose, and B, they've purposely chosen to learn nothing, so if we trust them again, they're nearly guaranteed to lose again. That's my sense of it. What do you think?
Yeah, or at least they were willing to lose rather than do anything different than what they wanted to do or what they were trying to do. It's kind of amazing even to think about that you have to hear from the Democratic Party that they acknowledge that funding and overseeing a genocide was a net negative. Like, can you imagine a world in which, on the base of voters, that voters are like, oh yeah, like I think that was good, and I'm glad that happened. Like that's, like it's so far out of the realm of possibility. And then we as a Teo funded a poll in Michigan, but I think it qualifies for like the entire country, where we asked to say like to this sentence, do you agree or disagree with the sentence? And the sentence was something like, if a candidate won't stand up to AIPAC, do you think that they'll stand up? Do you think that they'll, capitulate on other issues? In other words, like for you, is AIPAC more than just a question about the U.S. relationship with Israel? Does it stand in for you as on whether or not somebody will stand up for the country as a whole? And something like 2/3 of moderate voters said yes. Like if you're not willing to stand up to AIPAC, then how can I trust you to stand up for me on any other issue? Ta-Nehisi Coates had a good line where he said, Democrats, if they don't draw the line at genocide, why would I expect them to be able to defend democracy? And I think it's not just democracy, it's everything else. If you're not going to fight on that issue, that's so obviously the right thing to do, but you do the wrong thing because you're afraid or you're corrupt, then why would I expect you to do anything else? And so I think that had a much kind of deeper effect on the public than they want to acknowledge.
Totally. So look, I've been saying repeatedly here, Israel is not the cancer. Money in politics is the cancer. Israel is just tip of the iceberg. And the polling that you're referring to, Ryan, it shows exactly that they're saying, oh, now that I see the tip of the iceberg, I realize an iceberg exists. And so if Israel can buy the politicians, so can big oil, big pharma. Exactly, that's what we've been saying all along, right? So, they, in the Washington bubble though, they really do believe that, I would say they think you have to support the genocide. Now, they wouldn't phrase it that way. And a good guy that I talked to over the weekend when I was in DC, so not like a corporate suit and not an establishment Democrat, good guy. But even he asked me, well, in the presidential election, don't we have to support Israel? Because in Washington, they believe that's like a biblical command. Like if you don't, and they drilled into their head, not only do you have to, otherwise you're a disgusting Nazi or something, right? And everyone will shun you and you'll live in shame the rest of your life. But they think that all Americans think the same way. And they're like, what, don't we have to kiss Israel's ass? All Americans love Israel, don't they? It's like they seem incapable of reading a poll. So that's why I think the bubble in Washington, Ryan, is so different than the rest of the country, but the bubble is also so thick that you can't penetrate it. Like that they can't understand the simplest concepts. I mean, you're a reporter there, what's your take on it?
Yeah, it used to be in the very recent past, a proxy in a different direction. In other words, if a candidate was willing to be critical, if a politician in Washington, let's say Dennis Kucinich or somebody, was willing to be critical of Israel in a serious way, what that was a proxy for, what that was a signal of to the kind of mainstream press in Washington, is that this is a person that's here to be a messenger. They're not here for power. Like we don't have to consider them to be a part of this conversation among serious people, very quote unquote VSPs, they would call them, very serious people. Like they literally had that acronym, if you remember in Mark Halpern's newsletter 20 years ago. So it was a signal. Oh, you're critical of Israel? Got it. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. It's cute. You're somebody out there that is kind of funny and interesting, but not in the conversation, not in the rooms. And so that idea, I think for whoever you were talking to, I bet they're like 50 plus, so they've just kind of been marinating in that idea their entire lives that like, if you want to be in the room where the decisions are made, if you want to be a serious person in the conversation, one of the tickets that you have to have has to say, I support Israel. And that is no longer the case because the media has broken apart. And it also goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show with Graham Plattner breaking through, despite everything. The media doesn't have the same hold anymore. But that is kind of still the way that they think about it, that it's a proxy for being a team player. And if you're not willing to be that, if you're not willing to say I support Israel, then you're not that team player.
Yeah, so look, I think, first of all, I did not know, for some reason, I didn't see it, but the phrase very serious people is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And it's perfect, it's perfect. And to me, the avatar for corporate media, mainstream media is Jake Tapper, right? And I think I'm looking forward to Jake Tapper's brain breaking, because what's going to happen is he's been trained to kiss the ass of every politician, but he also trained to kiss the ass of Israel. So it's like, does not compute, must kiss senators' ass, must also kiss Israel's ass, does not compute, does not compute. So I'm super looking forward to that, especially when there's 4 or 5 of them. For if it's just one, like, I'll tell you, Bernie, what an anti-Semite, we could dismiss him, right? But last thing, Ryan, on this is, look, before the election, Democratic leaders said Trump is a Nazi and he's going to end democracy. It's the most important thing in the world. That's why we're running a guy who has dementia and his brain is leaking out of his ear, and he's polling in the 30s. So because we love and serve power and wealth, right? So they never meant it. There were 2 parties in this country, this establishment left, establishment right, and they were identical other than fake fights over social issues, right? Is it possible that we regain both the Democratic and Republican parties and leave the establishment in the middle, that uniparty exists of like the Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Schumer and Gillibrand, and then they become one party? They're like, oh, you guys are right. Yeah, we totally agree on everything, and we're the corrupt party, and you got the Democrats on the left and the Republicans on the right. Is that within the realm of imagination, or do these parties have to just get destroyed and we create new ones?
Well, I think everything that's going on now is kind of positioning and people rethinking how they think about the world, but it's leading into it's whatever massive crisis is coming. So like we're kind of in like a pre-crisis era right now, that we're in like 2005, 6, 7. As people, and then everything was different, after the 2007, 2008 crisis. But the kind of both parties established were able to kind of stitch it back together. You got the Trump populism, you got Bernie populism that flowed out of it. But the next time, I think that the banks come to the government and they're like, oh, hey, these AI companies are defaulting on everything. The Gulf countries don't have any money anymore because they've been blown to pieces. We're insolvent, and we're looking at hundreds of thousands of job losses a month or more. That's going to be the moment where everything that we're thinking about now and the way that people are just talking with each other is going to, I think, be reshaped, because it's going to be close enough to the last bailout that people are going to be like, no, we're not bailing you billionaires out again. Like, we're done with you. Like, what? We're going to rescue this world. We're going to come together and rescue the world, but we're going to make a different world on the other side of it. So what exactly that looks like, I don't know, but it's going to be different.
I want you all to remember what Ryan just said, because I think he's 100% right. I think there's going to be an AI apocalypse economically, and then when that happens, people are not going to be interested in the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, telling them how they have to bail out billionaires, right? And then we're going to have a real political revolution on our hands. And that's when the freight train is
going to be bailing them out of prison or not, bailing them out of jail or not.
Yeah.
Or are we holding them without bail? Like, that's the
at that point there's either
bailout question.
Yeah, at that point there's either going to be a political revolution or a physical revolution, depending on how things go. Because the American people are not going to tolerate bailing out billionaires, because all of our politicians are so obviously corrupt, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be an amazing moment in American politics. All right, we got to go to the next story. Let me show you what just happened.
You have failed. You have not done a good job running this country. You don't even care to try. You'd rather run the world or the empire. You don't want to improve Baltimore. You don't care about Gary, Indiana. Rural America makes you sick.
Wow, that was Tucker Carlson talking about Donald Trump. He didn't say his name, but it was very obvious that that's who he's referring to. Who else is running the country, right? And
the empire. Yeah,
he's obviously empirically correct about that. Although AOC was asked about him a little bit later, would we be better off with Donald Trump as president or Tucker Carlson? In fact, we have that poll up on tyt.com. We're going to show you her answer in a minute. But Tucker was talking to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and let me give you more of that conversation to show you how disgusted Tucker Carlson is with Donald Trump. And Marjorie Taylor Greene totally agreed with everything he's saying. So it's an amazing new world we live in. Watch.
Normal leaders would ask themselves, why are people mad? What are they dissatisfied with? How can I help them? They're clearly in pain. They should have asked this question when Trump got elected the first time. Why would you elect an orange guy who ran casinos in Atlantic City when there are all kinds of great candidates? Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz, you had a lot to choose from, but you chose Trump? A normal, reflective person would reach the only conclusion possible, which is because they're dissatisfied with me. And maybe I need to change and serve their needs better and listen to them once in a while and not dismiss them with the back of the hand or charges of bad motives or hate or censorship. They've never looked inward once in 10 years, and now they've reached the point of a maximum frustration where the biggest thing they've ever done, which is try to regime change the Iranian government, and it hasn't worked. That's the biggest thing they've ever done. They staked everything on that. And you should just know that at this point, now that that's not working out, they will not be mad at themselves. They're going to be mad at you for not liking it or appreciating it or for talking about it at all, or for holding on to your outdated expectations about what life in this country was like then and should be now.
So there's a lot we don't agree with Tucker Carlson on. We do agree with him these days on the war, Israel, and genocide. But Ryan, we just did a story about the Democratic Party where we sounded an awful a lot like Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene as they talked about the Republican Party. Isn't that an interesting mirror image?
Yes, I mean Tucker. I listened to your interview on there too. Tucker has been on a very interesting journey of introspection, and I hope people are open to it. Doesn't mean you have to like everything he said in the past or agree with everything that he's saying now. That would be weird if you did. But man, can you disagree with any of that right there? And I didn't actually see what AOC said about whether it would be better Tucker or Trump, but to me, it's not even remotely close. I can't think of anybody worse that we could have than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Maybe out of 300 plus million people in the country.
I totally agree. Actually, let me show you that clip first, and then we'll come back and discuss it. So TMZ, I believe, caught up with AOC, and they asked her that question. Let's watch.
Hey, if you could click your fingers and Tucker Carlson is president instead of Donald Trump, would you do it?
I don't know. I don't think so, but it's kind of a toss-up. I'm not really sure.
Ryan, she's not sure, because even if you grant that Tucker has the same positions as Trump outside of the war, Israel, and genocide, war and genocide and American sovereignty are rather gigantic issues. So they're not asking her, do you like Tucker? Would you vote for Tucker? Right. Would you vote for Tucker over Bernie? They're not asking any of that. Tucker versus Trump. My sense of it is that she didn't want to answer because she thought it was too politically risky. If she says anything nice at all about Tucker Carlson, there is a portion of the left that'll take her head off.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. And I think also, if you answer it, you get a headline out of it. AOC says Tucker should be president rather than Trump. Whereas if you kind of just sit on the fence about it, then there's no headline, just a viral video going around. But yeah, I think intellectually and politically and substantially and morally, if on the things that he agrees with Trump, you already have Trump. On the things he disagrees with Trump, he's better than Trump. So it's the world is net better off, obviously. But yeah, I think your political calculation is right there. But even on immigration, Tucker's been hard line on immigration, and especially when he was on Fox News. But he was critical, pretty severely critical of the way that Stephen Miller was carrying it out, the killings of Alex Peretti, killing of Renee Good, that was a line that he didn't want to cross. You could say, okay, well, you voted for this, you enabled this, your rhetoric supported this, and I think he would probably say you're right, and I'm sorry for that. So at that point, you're like, okay, you know what? If these are my two choices, Trump or this guy, I'm going with the guy who says he's sorry for that, not the guy that says he wants to do more of it, but he's just because he had to pull out of Minneapolis because it was just a little bit too embarrassing that they kept killing Americans.
Yeah, I think there's a hidden huge phenomenon going on here, Ryan, that people aren't talking about because they're so obsessed with binary brain. It's partisan politics and we hate Tucker, we're always going to hate Tucker. Look, he has opinions on sexism, on LGBTQ issues, immigration, and you're deeply uncomfortable with those. That makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. That's still true, okay? But why is he turning like this against war and in favor of American sovereignty? And even on ICE, to Ryan's point, I was on Sean Ryan's podcast, another giant podcaster who's on the right. Although these days he even chafes at being called on the right, and he, when we started talking about ICE, I mean, of course he agreed 100% on Israel and the wars. I say, of course, about a right-wing guy who supported Donald Trump. Of course, he hates Trump on war and Israel and all that, right? But on ICE, he basically said they were cowards. You don't shoot a woman in the head like that. You know, he's a former Navy SEAL, and he's like, this is not the right way to go about things. And Ryan, I think what's happening and what a lot of us on the left are missing, because we've been taught and trained to hate everyone on the other side and shut off our minds. Don't even listen to them. I don't want to hear it, right? Is that it's their audiences that are pushing them to have the same positions as us on these super important issues.
Yes, no, I think that's really well said. They're not talking about anybody individually here, but in general, yeah, these are not people that are like out there taking like tons of risks. They're very closely following, you know, where their audiences are on those issues, and that should be. Yeah, that should be gratifying to people who want those audiences to feel that way and then want people to come this way. You know, as you remember back in the 2020 campaign, who did Joe Rogan endorse for president? Bernie Sanders. So it's not strange that the entire kind of ecosystem organized around, aligned with like the Joe Rogan world, believes in the, you know, vaguely the kind of things that Bernie Sanders wants for the world. Like that's kind of where they were. As soon as Rogan did that, he got called a transphobe and a racist and all these other things, and you started to see the kind of them push off into the kind of far right, but that didn't have to happen. It wasn't natural, so it's not crazy that those podcast folks, you know, could wind up in a more just social democratic, common sense, like we're all in this together sense of humanity.
Yeah, you know, so again, patient zero here. I said as soon as Trump won that the independent podcasters like Rogan, Andrew Schultz, Tim Dillon, Theo Von were not MAGA cult guys. They were not Republicans. They were not ditto heads. And that if Trump did things that were against what he said, that they would turn on him. And at the time, everybody said, you're a lunatic. That's never, ever going to happen. They're all in a cult. They all repeat exactly what Trump said. But Ryan, even I'm surprised that it's not just the independent guys. Tucker Carlson's a right winger. I mean, Sean Ryan is on the right, brother. I mean, I know he doesn't want to say, but he is, right? And Megyn Kelly. This is going so much deeper than people realize. And that's because in online media, people reward outsiders, and in television, they reward insiders. So because of the very fact that they're in online media, not only are the independent podcasters going, yeah, sure, Bernie, why not? I want outsiders. I don't want insider scum, right? I don't want the elite jerks who've been robbing us and for my entire life. I want outsiders like Bernie, or they made the mistake of thinking Trump. And so as long as we're in the online media world, I think that these politicians are in way bigger trouble than they realize, whether it's Donald Trump or Chuck Schumer. And they keep thinking they live in the old world. Donald Trump keeps going, yeah, but Mark Levin agrees with me. Fox News agrees with me. And he's finding that rather useless, isn't he?
Yes, I was just looking at, and I think Glenn had posted this, and I was looking at the Free Press's like YouTube audience, and Glenn pointed out Mark Levin's YouTube audience. Some of these, like a lot of the Mark Levin videos are getting triple-digit viewers, like 722 people. And I think he's on Saturday evening or something on Fox. Like with that audience, that is people forced to watch. Like you are captive. You're in a home. You're in an airport. Well, like whatever. Like nobody's turning that on at that time. And so yeah, there's no organic, natural audience for that. And I think the same is true kind of for the Democratic establishment at this point, like Janet Mills, for instance. Like there's no Like, if people think that Janet Mills is going to be the horse they have to ride to beat Susan Collins, then they're in and they'll ride that horse. But there's no actual like excited base of grassroots support for what Janet Mills herself affirmatively stands for. And once the money isn't important, the big money isn't important because you can match it with small dollars, then what is even the point of those people? And once people are getting their, now it's at like 50-50, TV, broadcast, cable versus independent YouTube podcasts. But the lines on the graph are clear. Like it's not peaking at 50. That they're a fading power. And that's why they're trying to buy everything up, buy up TikTok, buy up everything else. So, you absolutely can't count big money out. But right now they're in a fight for their lives. And I love to see it. All right, I know we're not short on time, we're out of time, but I gotta do the next story because it's so relevant to you. You did the interview and I wanna make sure that I do it with you. So let's go to the next clip.
The pressure was unbelievable. Words cannot describe the amount of pressure that existed, and it became the #1 headwind for the company.
So that's Liban Mohammed. He used to serve on TikTok's congressional affairs team. So now he's running for Congress in Utah. Ryan Grimm interviewed him. We're gonna come to Ryan in a second. But during the interview, Mohammed explained that what it was like working at TikTok after October 7th and how much pro-Zionist pressure there was at the company. And this is before the Zionists even bought it. Watch.
In my job at TikTok, we're getting all these inquiries from different elected officials, pro-Israeli or lobbying organizations, think of ADL and all of those. The pressure was unbelievable. Words cannot describe the amount of pressure that existed, and it became the #1 headwind for the company that could result in the lack of its existence in the largest consumer market in the entire world. We were getting inbound inquiries, and this is public information. You could see a lot of these letters online. I mean, every few days, every other day, from pro-Israeli lobbying organizations, from pro-Israel perspective legislators, and the company was just being inundated.
So I'm gonna argue in a minute that this is among the ways that Israel completely controls our national, what we used to call mainstream media. And so here's basically a whistleblower telling you how it works on the inside. In a minute, we're gonna get to Politico, where the person who runs the entire company came in to say that you must support Israel. It is not optional in a news organization. But Liban Mohammed actually had more to say on this, and I want to go to Ryan and get his thoughts on it. But it was not just in these recent years that this pressure existed. Let's watch.
This experience actually made me understand exactly how this influence really works. It's more than money. It's persistence. It's the sophistication behind their lobbying efforts. And they make you feel like you're in a bubble, that their perspective is the only perspective that exists because of the volume that you're dealing with. And everybody knows in the company what it is, the pressure that exists. And you have to feel like you're walking on eggshells because you know at the end of the day that the ultimate purpose of this business, like any other business, is to make profit. And the biggest risk to risk profit at the current moment is the pro-Israel perspective threatening to participate in the efforts to ban the platform.
So Ryan, you did the interview, and as I watched it, I thought, yeah, this is exactly what we theorized, and here's a brother telling us that that's exactly what happens internally. Now, I'm gonna use harsh words, you can use any words you like, but I think that these are a bunch of thugs who act like a Gestapo within the media, and if anyone is critical of Israel, they put a world of pressure on them. And in this case, the pressure was, we're gonna destroy your company. We're gonna make you sell it, okay? And you're gonna have to sell it at a loss, way less than you would have sold it otherwise. Not at a loss, but at a greatly reduced price. And we're gonna damage you as much as we possibly can for not serving as a propaganda unit for Israel. And then they threaten everybody inside the building. I mean, this is the thuggish behavior that the brown shirts did when they were around, and then they escalated past that and got to physical violence. But this is not just about TikTok. They do this at every media organization, don't they?
What's ironic too is that it's not even criticism of Israel. It wasn't like people talking to camera and like giving their like essay response for like why they think what Israel was doing in Gaza was wrong. It wasn't like that wasn't it. You saw it unfold. What people saw, in some ways, sort of for the first time, they were able to make a person-to-person connection with people in Gaza, and they were then able to watch Israel slaughter them and their families. And it broke through all of the propaganda, because you see, like, these are real people just trying to live their lives, and they're being, driven out of their homes, bombed out of their homes, they're being starved, they're being shot. And so it wasn't that they objected to like the words or the arguments that were being made even. It wasn't about even necessarily speech. It was just, here's the firsthand evidence of what's happening that the mainstream media has never shown you before. Except when they do, it changes things. Like if you remember, I don't remember, but 1982, when Israel's invading Lebanon, there were all these images of Lebanese civilians slaughtered by the Israelis, and Ronald Reagan called up, I think it was Menachem Begin at the time, and said, it looks like the Holocaust. You need to stop. It's on the front pages of all the papers. So whether it's TikTok or the front page of the papers, when those images break through, that's when things change. And so they have to go directly after the images. And so and we have public comments from the House sponsor, from Mitt Romney over in the Senate and others, saying they have been trying to get TikTok, basically taken over by a US company for years, but only succeeded because of October 7th, because the Israel lobby then came in and helped kind of push it over the top, because they're at something of a stalemate with the Chinese-run company up until then. But yeah, and now the Ellisons, who, Larry Ellison has given what, $17-some million plus to the Friends of the IDF nonprofit, speaks about his devotion to Israel repeatedly. They are now going to own and control, TikTok, CNN, CBS News, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and a long list of media companies you've heard of that I can't even think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to then come to them with any sort of pitch that's remotely even skeptical of Israel at that point.
Yeah. So look, I now realize that Israel has been, killing their neighbors and trying to take their land for a long, long time. I didn't know that, and partly because I lived in their bubble. I lived in the mainstream media bubble, and I thought Israel, was a normal country and that they were the victims and all this stuff. We all got brainwashed, right? So now, just today, to your point about us being able to see it with our own eyes, there was a guy who was taking care of a lot of the cats in Gaza, and he'd feed them every day, even though they're, halfway starving themselves. The humans are, and Israel murdered him, and the cats won't leave his side. And so there's heartbreaking video after video, picture after picture. So a picture today online of an IDF soldier masturbating at the Gaza destruction. It's like a Nazi soldier masturbating in front of Auschwitz. These are disgusting, sick tactics that Israel uses. They're like, and the only way that they ever got away with it was overwhelming propaganda. That is why they tried to control our media here in America, so you wouldn't see their war crimes that they apparently have been doing decade after decade after decade. Obviously, the poor Palestinians who've been suffering under their oppressive, fascist, dictatorial rule in West Bank and Gaza Strip, and they hate new media for bursting the bubble that they had created here in America. But if you're not convinced yet, I've got to tell you the story of what happened at Politico. So Politico is an establishment publication to begin with, very, very pro-Israel to begin with. But some of their reporters recently wrote a memo to their executives there saying, hey, listen, we've got to cover the Iran war fairly. And so can we please be honest? Are we allowed to be honest about the Iran war? So not only did they bring a guy who's the head of Politico, they brought in the big cat. Axel Springer, a German company, owns Politico, and they own a lot of media, which I'll tell you about in a second. And in fact, they try to invest in us, and that's an interesting story. I'll tell you that in a second. So they bring in their CEO, Matthias Döpfner. So what's Döpfner's situation? What did he have to tell them? Is he going to take it seriously? Yeah, guys, of course, we're in the news business. Here's Jewish Insider saying that Döpfner exhorted Europe to stand with the United States and Israel in their war with Iran, and said that the European aid to Palestinians helped fund terrorists, while arguing that the continent was on the wrong side of history in pausing assistance to Israel. So there's no question so that's an op-ed from the CEO of Axel Springer, and he's saying deep into the genocide now and all the wars that they've started. Israel's the victim, and you must report it that way. So he comes in and does this presentation where he says to the Politico reporters, shut up and serve Israel. But let me give you the direct quotes from Jewish Insider, you make up your own mind. If you're saying, he says to the Politico staff, if you're saying that one should not say that the Iranian leadership, the mullahs, are aggressors, you may be right. The wording is more of a euphemism. We should rather say they're terrorists or they are mass murderers. So they said, well, the reporters are asking, but didn't we attack Iran, us and Israel? They didn't attack us, so we were the aggressors. And he's like, no, shut up and write that they are mass murderers and everyone should hate them and it's their fault, and just say that they started the war. Who cares? Who cares? Serve Israel. Your job is not to do news at Politico. Your job is to do Israeli propaganda. But wait, he's not anywhere near done. That would be more appropriate, he said, given the kind of spread of terrorism with Iranian proxies from Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthi, and other terrorist organizations. I think to a position that is an aggressor is a mild version of what it is. These two facts, he says, that the Iranians are working on the nuclear bomb and that they are the aggressors for decades, are so obvious, so proven for many times. They're almost, it's like saying America is the biggest democracy in the world. I don't have to prove that. First of all, America is not the biggest democracy in the world, India is. But it doesn't matter, he already told you, we're not doing news at Politico, we're not doing news at any Axel Springer media organization. In fact, one of their 5 founding principles is that they must serve Israel. That is amazing. That's in their actual corporate guidelines. They say, no, we must be pro-Zionist. You are not to do news. You are to do propaganda. They've been working on their nuclear program for decades. Then how come they didn't have a nuke? Netanyahu's been telling us for 30, 40 years that they were about to have a nuke tomorrow, they're gonna have it next week. And Matthias has been lying the whole time, they're about to have a nuke, they're about to have, and he's like, hey, reporters, shut up and lie. Say they're about to have a nuke, but didn't we destroy their nuclear facilities? Shut up, do not do news. Thank you for letting us know, I'm not done. If the Green Party in England, he says, is saying Zionism is racism, I just want to make it very clear that we think Zionism is, and that is the official definition, Israel's right of self-determination and of its right to exist as a safe haven for Jews who have almost been extinct during the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened, it was terrible, there's no question they were victims back then, but we're not talking about the 1940s, we're talking about today where Israel is much stronger and they're the ones doing war crimes. It doesn't matter if you don't support Zionism, you're out, okay? In fact, just to be clear, they completed the threat. He says, since Israel's right to exist in Zionism is one of the 5 core company values, which is just stunning. I mean, it's stunning for any company, let alone a news company. Anyway, he says, if that is something that somebody wants to question, then we are really reaching the very fundamental principles of our values. And that then may lead simply to the decision that because we are very transparent about it, it is then an individual decision whether Axel Springer and somebody who has so fundamentally different beliefs is really a good fit. So you're not a good fit here if you won't do Israeli propaganda. But don't worry, Israel doesn't control our media. That's a trope. That's a trope. Okay, that concept of a trope is a made up concept to protect Israel, okay? So they could pretend that everything is a trope. You're not allowed to say it, you're not allowed to say, I'm saying it because it is absolutely true, because they're saying it, I'm not done yet. Dorfner's comments received no pushback and even some tacit backing from political leaders who participated in the meeting. Of course, and by the way, this is Jewish Insider writing it. And they're like, attaboy, but don't you dare. And later in the article, they're like, now, of course, this is a terrible trope to say that Jews control the media. And yeah, these Jews control the media. Look at your own stupid article. It isn't Jewish people. 63% of Jewish Americans are against the Netanyahu government. It is maniacal, pro-Israel first lunatics, a bunch of terrorist sympathizers that have taken over our government. Okay, so who's this Matthias Dopfner guy anyway? He says, but I know that some of you may say, as you take stock, that doesn't sit right, and it doesn't feel like this is something that'll make you happy. I'm a very firm believer that we do our best work here where we are happy, where we feel fulfilled, where we feel aligned with the organization that we work for. Brother, we got it. You already told them they're gonna get fired if they don't do Israeli propaganda, but they just keep piling on, right? Now, what has he done in the past? Get a load of this. This is also, ironically, from an earlier article from Politico. Israeli President Isaac Herzog presented the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor to Axel Springer's CEO Matthias Dopfner and casino mogul and GOP mega donor Miriam Adelson on Wednesday. He got the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor because he's done such a great job of lying to Germans, to Americans, to everyone on behalf of Israel and hiding all of their crimes while pretending to do news. The honor, he said, Dopfner said, is the most meaningful, the most emotional award I have ever received in my life. I did propaganda so well. I helped Israel control the media while we pretend that they don't. Oh, I get so emotional over it. And he said, our support for Israel and our fight against anti-Semitism is not something we would ever trade for anything. Our support for Israel is not something we would trade for anything, he says. That's not me saying it, that's him saying it. So is he an anti-Semite? Is he doing the trope? Because he's literally saying over anything, including the news, no. Our support for Israel, more important than the news, more important than anything, okay? So this is nonsense. By the way, I gotta correct myself. The guy that we said, hey, if you don't feel good and not a good fit. First one was Matthias Dopfner. The second one was the CEO of Politico, the new CEO of Politico, Greenberger. And he said, yeah, you better get the hell out of here if you don't support Israel. Hey, if you don't feel comfortable, maybe you should go get a job at a real news organization. Didn't you know you were signing up for corporate and foreign government propaganda? It's Politico. Ryan, here, actually one last thing, Ryan, let me read you the list, because you read basically Ellison's list of the Paramount and CBS and Free Press, CNN, HBO Max, TBS, TNT, let alone all the others. So that's who Ellison, Larry and David Ellison are buying. But Axel Springer also has Business Insider, Morning Brew, Politico, Politico Europe, Upday. And those are the ones that affect us and are in English. They also have The Build and so many other publications throughout the country. Well, if this isn't Israel at least trying to control our media, what is it?
Yeah, and obviously Germany deals with an enormous amount of appropriate guilt for carrying out the Holocaust. But one way that they've kind of metabolized it is to displace it over into this like unapologetic, unquestioning support for whatever Israel does. And lost in that is the point that you made, that huge numbers, at least Jewish Americans, are extremely hostile to what the Israeli government is doing. And conflating those two is, according to significant numbers of like definitions of anti-Semitism, is definitionally anti-Semitic. So Germany obviously is quite a unique case there. I remember when Axel Springer bought Politico. I forget the year that was, many years ago at this point. But I remember friends who were still there saying, we got this bizarre form that says we have to sign that we support Israel, which is, as for a reporter, it's a curious question because, okay, he says it is unquestionable that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapon. Well, in fact, that's an empirical question. Is Iran pursuing a nuclear weapon or not? Is an empirical question that journalists are supposed to use sources and documents to answer. But if Israel says that they are, and you as a journalistic institution are mandated to support Israel, then circularly, you just have to report that Iran is pursuing a nuclear weapon, whether they're pursuing one or not. And that's just on that one example. But that thing that you read about them being mass murderers rather than aggressors, yeah, that was like a compromise from him, because he was saying, well, it's obvious that they're the aggressors in this war, and some of the reporters are like, well, hold on a second. Say what you want about whatever, but like, we were alive in February. Israel and the United States bombed Iran. There were negotiations going on. They bombed Iran. They bombed a girls' school. We saw that happen. Iran responded. Like, that is the sequence of events. You cannot disrupt the time-space continuum here. So it was sort of like him backing down a little bit. Okay, fine. Aggressors, fine. They were not the aggressors, but they've been aggressors for decades, and they're terrorists and mass murderers. So call them that. And you called him a liar. He seems to me like the kind of guy who's just been saying this stuff for decades now and would pass a lie detector test with it. That it's just, but who knows? And also, who cares? It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's bleak. And with the increasing amount of consolidation, it's just getting bleaker.
No, that's a fair point, Ryan, because a lot of these guys are zombies. They believe they drank their own Kool-Aid, and I've had to deal with them in the business world, and they truly believe it. So Axel Springer came here many years ago, and we did an investment back in 2017. We talked to a lot of people, and it sounded, they're like, oh my God, your business looks perfect. We're looking into digital media. You guys are the largest at the time, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, poof, we don't hear from them. So I don't know why they didn't go in that direction. There could be 1,000 different reasons. Was it because of this? Maybe they saw one of our shows and they're like, oh, they will not do propaganda for Israel. This is an unacceptable show, right? And then recently in another round, we talked to a company related to the Ellisons, and the very first question they asked me was about Israel. So they're not subtle. And then those same exact people, if you told them Israel's trying to control our media, they're like, anti-Semite. Now that's why we're not giving you any money, because you won't serve Israel. Well, which one is it, brother? Right? So, okay, last thing, Ryan. For the rest of the country, this seems obvious. Like, this is not close, it's not subtle. We just, to your point, we just saw them with our own eyes by half of American media and say that it will serve Israel. And they said it out loud, right? So is it, but if you go to Washington, my experience, and I'm curious about yours because you're there a lot more often, is no, that is an outrageous thing to say. Anyone who says that Israel's trying to control our media should be canceled and should be fired immediately, which ironically kind of proves our point. But yeah, what's your experience? Is anybody in Washington getting this, or are they still in the same bubble as Matthias?
No, I think in Washington, I think they would say, you can't say control. That's outrageous. But I think they would be like, you know what? Spending enormous amounts of money to heavily influence. Yeah, gonna let you say that. And you can concede that too. It's like, it's complete control. Hey, CBS News is gonna do stories critical of Israel sometimes. Even today's CBS News, they're gonna get some out. So I think that's in Washington today. That's where you're gonna get the quibble, is control. But I think in general, like, there's a major acknowledgement that that Israeli influence and obviously the influence of the Ellisons, who are enormous supporters, like not just run-of-the-mill supporters of Israel, but like 0.1 percentile supporters of Israel, are increasingly they themselves in control of huge swaths of the media.
Yeah, it's not subtle. And anyone claiming it's a trope can kiss my ass. It's definitely control. It's not slight influence around the edges when you buy the whole damn company and then you tell the reporters they're not allowed to criticize Israel. That's called control. The only people saying it's not control are either cowards or liars, in my opinion, because they don't want to get fired. They're like, well, I mean, it's not control. It's not control. I'm so, no, please don't fire me. You don't control me. You don't control me. I think that kind of proves our case. Okay, we gotta go. Ryan, you're awesome. Everybody check out Drop Site News.
Thank you, sir.
And you know what? The one thing Drop Site News and Young Turks share, well, we share a lot of things, but the most important one is we're uncontrollable.
Uncontrollable, controlled by, our readers can't even control us.
That's right. I mean, we defied our own viewers, and everybody saw it, right? So at least some portion of our viewers, and they're like, "Oh, you better get back in line." No, we don't get back in line. We do the news, and we're honest with people, no matter what. All right, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. We'll be right back, guys.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
Who do you guys use?
We have AT&T.
And how much do you pay per month?
$345, and that includes a company discount.
How many people?
5 phones.
$70 a line, right? I've started a wireless company called Noble Mobile that is trying to cut everyone's bills in half.
What would like a family of 4 cost?
The average Noble Mobile user is paying $42 a month, but also they're using their smartphone 17% less.
Okay, how does that work out?
We give you $20 back in cash every month based upon how much data you use or don't use. You know when you're doom scrolling or messing around on your phone, you're like, oh wait, I'm actually costing myself money right now. The goal with Noble Mobile is to encourage us to look up at our children's lovely faces, like touch grass, appreciate life. A friend of mine calls these things are rectangles of sadness. So we're trying to change that and improve everyone's relationships with their phones.
It's a very noble cause.
Well, thank you, sir. That's what it is.
Been on YouTube for 20 years.
The original political partner on YouTube, the Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
Godfather of independent media.
Yeah. Favorite news platform by far. Oh, it's not even close.
The Young Turks. It's the largest online news show in the world.
I watched you guys before I had a channel at all.
So. And I watched Cenk, so Cenk's really the start of it all. Yeah.
Big shout out to Cenk from Young Turks.
Cenk Uygur, founder of TYT, a man who probably needs no introduction.
Cenk, it's so great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, David.
Fan, you worked for a long time, man.
Anna Kasparian is one of the most followed and influential progressive women online.
I love Anna.
your presence has been essential for me to really grow.
Do all of you know the Young Turks? This is why what Young Turks are doing is so important.
I've watched you for many years. You are insightful. I thank you for that.
I was going to introduce myself, but it sounds like you guys might know it.
All right, back on TYT, Chinny Huger, Yasmin Aliyah Khan with you guys. And Constant Kaviris, thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships. Before we get to Yaz, and I know you've been waiting a while, sorry Yaz, old school these days. I want to tell you guys about one thing real quick. So, you know that everybody's got different angles on the news. We just talked about how the media perverts the news so much. Well, there's a couple of organizations that try really hard to expose that. One is us, the other is Ground News. And they tell you what's actually going on and how a story is being framed. It's an app and a website that pulls together reporting from across the political spectrum so you can compare coverage in one place. You can compare headlines side by side, see the bias distribution of the coverage, check the factuality ratings of the sources, and even see who owns the outlets reporting on it. And as we just told you, that is enormously relevant. If you want to stay informed without getting played by the media spin, I think Ground News is a really valuable tool. So go to ground.news/TYT. That's ground.news/TYT, or scan the QR code you're seeing right there. And if you use our link, you get 40% off the Ground News Vantage plan. So check it out now. All right, yes, what's next?
All right, so we need to give everyone an update on the actual living situation in Gaza, because as the IDF continues to do its genocide on the Gaza Strip, we're getting a lot of reporting now, Cenk, that gives a little bit more insight into what the real Palestinians are doing on the ground who are still there. So what are your two cents on that first?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a heartbreaking story. It's gonna show you how badly the people in Gaza are still being abused to this day. I mean, if you've got a heart at all, you've got to stop funding the monstrosities that Israel's, creating in the Gaza Strip. If you don't believe me, Yaz is about to show you empirical evidence of what they've done, and it is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and these stories are especially hard because sometimes you get caught up in the facts and you forget what it's actually like for the people who are living through these things. So the IDF has turned Gaza into a wasteland, destroying almost the entirety of Gaza's infrastructure. And according to World Bank Group, at the beginning of the month, the cost of damage to critical infrastructure in Gaza is estimated at around $18.5 billion, according to a new report released today by the World Bank and the United Nations, with financial support from the EU. That is equivalent to 97% of the combined GDP of the West Bank and Gaza in 2022. So this includes sectors like housing, also public services like water, health, and education, and damage to commercial and industrial buildings. Housing, by the way, accounts for 72% of that cost, with over 1 million people homeless and 75% of the population being displaced. And also with 84% of health facilities damaged or destroyed and a lack of electricity and water to operate remaining facilities, the population has minimal access to healthcare, medicine, and other life-saving treatments. The water and sanitation system has nearly collapsed, delivering less than 5% of its previous output, with people dependent on limited water rations for survival. And sadly, this has caused another problem for families who are just trying to survive. They now have a pest problem. So according to DropSite, there's been a growing infestation of rats and cockroaches and other pests within the region. So in a rapid assessment of more than 1,600 displacement sites across Gaza this month, the UN found that in over 80% of them, rodents and pests were frequently visible, affecting 1.45 million people. Practically all of the affected families are now reporting skin infections, including scabies and lice and bed bugs, with more than 70,000 cases recorded so far in 2026. And beyond that, many people fear that the infections caused by bites and their ability to easily get into the already scarce food supply is going to worsen the problem, exacerbate it, and the food is now going to be contaminated. And according to Majid Sukar, he's the head of the preventative health department for the Gaza municipality. He says the scale of destruction in Gaza has created ideal breeding grounds. The Israeli blockade on rodenticides and mountains of uncollected waste and untreated sewage are the primary drivers of this crisis. And no matter what they do, it seems that these people are just facing a losing battle. They can't win anywhere. So they said, we've lost most of our municipal vehicles in Israeli attacks. We simply don't have the capacity to remove waste or respond effectively. We've tried to find alternatives. Many people have brought us homemade poisons, but they don't work either. This is horrible. It's hard to read that stuff. I'm sure it's hard for you all to hear all that stuff. And this really is the reality of what Israel is doing to these people in Palestine, and everything is by design. They're doing all this on purpose. They've bombed all the medical facilities. They don't have houses anymore. They don't have homes. It's shocking. And then we're over here like, oh yeah, like in your mind, it's almost like you disconnect from it because there's still people who are living over there. So maybe you think maybe it's not so bad, but these are the living conditions. Cenk, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so first, I read the stories, and one of the kids had his eye bitten by a rat, and it was when he woke up, it was all swollen and closed, a massive infection. So there's so many rats, they're starting to overwhelm the people. And then that line about how the rats are multiplying because of the open sewage reminded me of Ben Shapiro's line from a while back. He wrote, Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue. Now, other than being outwardly, explicitly racist, think about the irony of that. It's actually the Israelis that bomb crap. They bombed Gaza worse than anything I've seen in my lifetime. They destroyed 90% of the buildings in Gaza. They were utter monsters, and now they're forcing Palestinians to live in sewage to the point where there's a giant rat infestation, and then they blame them for it. They gotta look at the Arabs living in sewage. Honestly, Israeli supporters have been sick racist my whole life. The Palestinians don't deserve freedom. They would just attack us. They're violent savages. Well, we feel like we're under a threat. What threat? Look at what you just did to Gaza. And then those monsters then turn around and pretend they're the victims. Everything is about, oh, we need money. And what do? Did we pay the $18.5 billion to rebuild Gaza? Of course not. No, instead, under Biden, we sent an extra $21 billion to murder more Palestinians. And then Trump came in and he said, wait, I'm not done. I want to give you 13 billion extra to murder more Palestinians, more Lebanese, more Iranians. I need Israel to murder as many Arabs as possible while pretending to be the victim. Don't worry, the Israelis bought almost all of American media. And they're bragging about how they're not gonna let anybody see what Israel's really doing. And they're gonna destroy all of Israel's enemies by pretending that they're the bad guys so that they can continue to fund this disgusting genocide where they brutalize the Palestinians. If you're still supporting Israel, this government of Israel doing all of this, you're a deeply immoral person and you're literally a terrorist sympathizer. All right, back to you, yes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Cenk, we have more of this story, and it's not better because the one group that has been affected the most from all of this genocide is, of course, the children. So Abu Saman was born on October 7th, 2023, just 3 hours before the start of what would become the genocidal war on the Gaza Strip. And on October 8th, as Noor rested in her mother's arms, Israeli missiles struck nearby. The air thick with smoke and toxic gas, the newborn began to struggle for breath. And in her first days of life, Noor was diagnosed with movement paralysis caused by the inhalation of toxic gases. But life only got more difficult when the hospital she was being treated at was targeted by the IDF. Noor was the sole survivor of the IDF's deadly attack on the Al Nasser hospital. But sadly, Noor's story is not unique in Gaza. We are seeing a lot of this type of thing happen over there. So the report says, as the family struggles, official data from Gaza's Ministry of Health confirms a surge in such cases. Zaher al-Wahidi, head of the ministry's information unit, reported that 1,200 children in Gaza now suffer from spinal cord injuries and paralysis directly resulting from Israeli attacks. Again, all of this is by design. This is what they wanted to happen. They knew what they were doing when they were targeting these children's schools and when they were targeting the hospitals. But there's more. Additionally, the Ministry of Health recorded 322 cases of congenital defects in 2025 alone, double the pre-war rate. And al-Wahidi attributes this spike to famine, toxic exposure from millions of tons of projectiles, and the collapse of prenatal care. Also, there are approximately 1,000 children who have undergone amputations or suffered severe permanent scarring. And for many children, their only hope for survival is immediate medical evacuation. But of course, Israel is not letting that happen. When we say it's by design, they want these people extinguished. So currently, some 4,000 children in Gaza require urgent treatment abroad. They were expected to be allowed to travel via the Rafah crossing, Gaza's only gateway to the world. But Israel has imposed heavy restrictions on movement. Despite the overwhelming need, official data provided by al-Wahidi shows that 154 children have been allowed to leave Gaza since crossing partially reopened in February. It's unbelievable. And the thing is, I like that we cover stories like this on this show because again, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in like the geopolitical angle of things and not remember or not really understand how to feel that these are real people who are being affected. And I think this is one of the frustrations that I had when Trump got reelected for his second term, and there was this feeling of just like nothing is going to get better, it's only going to get worse from this point. And people would say, oh, you know what, it's just 4 years, you'll be fine. It's not just 4 years, because this is what can happen in just 1 year, right? And I know this didn't start at the beginning of Trump's second term. I know that this happened during the Biden administration, and the Democrats did not do anything to stop it. They just gave them more money. I understand that, but my point is just that so much damage can be done in so little bit of time, and rebuilding that is either impossible or will take so much longer to get back what was lost. And in this case, we're talking about children, we're talking about babies they're suffering from debilitating illnesses immediately upon birth. They're losing their limbs immediately upon birth, or they're just not surviving at all. And we're all complicit in this, whether or not we want to be. I like that we're speaking out against it here on shows like this one, but you do feel kind of helpless, Cenk.
Yeah, so I want to give you more facts. So 36 kids died in Israel on October 7th, and it was heartbreaking. We reported on it, and they're not political, they're not IDF, they're not Mossad, they're not in the government. They were poor, innocent civilian kids. Our hearts broke for them, and the countries did, and the media talked about it a lot, and I think that it makes sense to talk about it a lot. That's why we're against terrorism. So 457 kids in Gaza have died within the first week of their life because of the conditions that Yaz just explained to you. They consume, breathe toxic air. They were on the verge of starvation. They were malnourished coming out because their moms were starving. So remember that crazy nonsense talking point that the Republicans had of like, oh, after the baby's born, then they kill it. Some people are in favor of post-birth abortion or whatever. That's not a thing, right? But here in this case, they literally, a week after they were born, 457 Palestinian kids died. Okay, I don't know, there's monsters in this world, almost all of them are in Washington and Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, etc. That go, oh yeah, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. The 36 Israeli kids are worth their weight in gold. They're the most important people on the planet. The 457 Palestinian kids, who cares? They had it coming. As Golda Meir famously said, former Israeli prime minister, we'll never forgive the Palestinians for making us kill their children. Okay, but wait, I'm not done. There's another 470, that died, the kids. So how did they die? You remember Yaz just read to you guys, there's 4,000 kids that desperately need medical attention and need to leave Gaza. Well, Israel won't let them leave, even though they know that they're on the verge of dying. And by the way, monsters who are Israeli supporters go around saying the Palestinians aren't even occupied. They don't exist and they're not occupied. Oh, really? If they're not occupied, can the kids go and get medical attention somewhere else? No, shut up. You're under our control. The Palestinians are worthless, the Israelis say, and we'll slaughter their children. And they did. Since they didn't let the sick kids out, 470 of those kids died. And by the way, more are dying as we speak, because the Israelis haven't had enough bloodlust. They haven't murdered enough Palestinians yet. They sold 53% of Gaza. They're in the middle of stealing southern Lebanon now, but they need more land. Greater Israel's not enough. And yes, most Jewish Americans here do not believe this at all. So do not take it out on them. In fact, 63% of Jewish Americans are against the current Israeli government. But are there government officials and tons of Israelis right now who believe they are the chosen people? They are religious fundamentalists? Yes, literally every settler believes that. Every settler is a terrorist who thinks, I am a superior being. I am the Übermensch. And these are my cattle. They call the Palestinians cattle. And they think, so what? I slaughter the cattle for my own purposes. That is exactly how terrorists and fascists and Nazis act. They murder those kids. All you gotta do is let them out. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to do anything. You never pay for anything anyway. America, you owe me 300 billion. You owe me 7 wars. You owe me, the Israelis say. We don't owe these genocidal maniacs anything. They murder children on a regular basis. Let the goddamn kids out, they're sick. But no, probably the majority of those 4,000 will also die after this, because Israel is led by a bunch of vicious monsters, terrorists, and almost everyone in Washington, everyone in our media, and everyone in our government goes, nope, you all have to bow your head and serve Israel. Give me your money, Americans. I'm gonna send it to Israel to murder more kids. That is an empirical fact. It's a fact. But no. When I was in DC, a bunch of mainstream media guys see me and they shun me. They're like, look at that guy. He doesn't even agree with Israel slaughtering kids. Ew, I wouldn't want to be associated with him. Oh, he should be canceled. He won't bow his head to Israel. He doesn't even want to murder Palestinian kids. Hey, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and all of you sons of bitches on cable news. Did you talk about the 470 kids that died for no goddamn reason because Israel wouldn't let them out? Did you talk about the 22,800 kids? My God, a stadium full of murdered kids. Did you show 1% of the compassion that you did for the 36 Israeli kids? Of course you didn't, because you think the Israelis are important and precious and that the Palestinians are not human. Show me 1% of the compassion for the Palestinian kids. You won't. Instead, what you'll do is anyone who shows compassion for the Palestinians, everyone on cable news minus Chris Hayes, will now come out and go, anti-Semites. You should fire them. You should ruin their lives. They're not even in favor of genocide. I'm so sick of the disgusting terrorist sympathizers in our mainstream media, which is 98% of them. I accuse you, mainstream media, you stupid so-called reporters, you're liars, you're cowards. You're all in favor of terrorism and you support this fascist Israeli government. You don't care about Palestinians. You don't care about anyone. You're all bigots. You're all racists. You're pretending, I'm so concerned about anti-Semitism. Oh, the Muslims, who cares? Murder them, murder them, murder them. Americans, you're gonna send money to them. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite. We'll destroy you in this country. That's what you look like. These Israeli supporters are sick. They're sick people. I can't stand that our money, your money out there, you go work hard for your living. And they send that money to Israel to slaughter children. Don't come to me with BS tropes that you invented to protect yourself. Did you know you were gonna murder the kids? Is that why you invented the trope about blood libel? Come on, man. Jesus Christ, have you no decency or morality? If you're not as upset as I am about the genocide, and you know it, if you don't know it, I get it, brother. A lot of people don't know it because the thugs in our media, they think their job is to protect Israel. They don't give a damn about Americans. They don't give a damn about anyone but Israelis. So if you didn't hear it, I hear you. But if you know all this monstrosity and you're still running cover and you're doing propaganda for them, You're a sick, immoral person. Almost everyone on cable news and almost everyone in our Congress are sick terrorist sympathizers who rob us of our money to send it to their donors, the Israelis. They sicken me. You should despise them, Young Turks. All right, let me go to some comments from TYT.com earlier. Lou B said, great to see Ryan on TYT. Always great to see Ryan, I agree. Dragon with a flagon said, as a woman in my 50s in Maine, I look at it like this. There's not one adult on this earth that if you could comb through everything they ever said, you would not find something to use against them. Of course. That's why the sick liars in mainstream media will always smear outsiders and protect insiders. Oh golly gee, I just can't find anything on Chuck Schumer. Couldn't find anything on Chuck, on him, on Mitch McConnell, on Dick Cheney. Couldn't find anything. I guarantee you, every one of those guys has done disgusting, immoral things behind the scenes. And by the way, I bet they have that information. I know Israel has that information, and I bet a lot of media executives have that information, but they won't release it as long as you're a good boy. Visionary says, so the DNC who rigs and eliminates primaries are claiming that the RNC rigs the general. Yes, the giant liars that run the Democratic Party. James Kelly writes in on Super Chat, I recently found out about the Trump route for international peace and prosperity in southern Armenia. From my understanding, this route could bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Would Donati cause a global economic collapse to force the use of this route? Oh, and it's a 99-year agreement. I'm gonna look into that, brother, good tip. The other thing is, of course, Israel has opened Leviathan, a giant gas field in Israel, and Netanyahu has literally already bragged on air, now everybody's gonna have to use our gas, and we're gonna be richer, and you're all gonna be poorer. All right, back on TYD, Cenk and Yaz with you guys, and 00077. Thank you for signing up. And guys, thanks for putting up with me, man. Look, if I don't get mad at a genocide, what am I gonna get mad at, right? So I think people who aren't mad at the genocide, I don't know what's wrong with them. I think the people that pretend to be in news in DC are the worst, most immoral people on earth. Okay, Yaz, let's go to the next story.
Yeah, one more story, let's roll it.
You go back 2 years ago, we were paying almost $6 a gallon for gasoline. Right now it's in the threes. Obviously we've seen a jump with the Iran conflict.
When were we paying 6?
Still 50.
What,
well, 2.5 years ago.
I don't
but
think
if
we were,
you look at,
that wasn't the average
where
price.
We are.
So when CNBC calls out your BS and you're a Republican pretending the economy is good, oh boy, things are not going well for the Republicans. Scalise, you could almost see it in his face like, wait, I'm not allowed to lie on CNBC anymore? Yeah, gas is 50 cents, what do you mean? I mean, just wild, outrageous lie after outrageous lie. But now what you're gonna find out in this story is how badly the economy is actually hurt. So yes, tell us about it.
Okay, so first let's hear more of that back and forth. That was Republican Representative Steve Scalise and Joe Kernan, so let's hear more of that conversation.
It's still gonna go lower when Iran gets resolved and the Strait of Hormuz gets open. But at the same time, did anybody want a nuclear armed Iran? I think if you ask most normal people, they would say absolutely not. When they just slaughtered 30,000 of their own people, they were about to get a nuclear weapon. And President Trump stopped that. But that's going to get resolved. President Trump's negotiating that right now.
You must have been on vacation in California. I think 2 years ago in April of 2024, we were at about 365. So we're actually above where we were then. And I'm not.
No, we were well into the fives under Biden. Well into the fives.
At one point, not 2 years ago.
Most of energy production shut down. Energy in the Gulf of America was shut down. Alaska was shut down. We opened that up, by the way, in the working families tax
but 2
cut,
years ago,
and that's why
the
you're
average
seeing more
was
production now.
Exactly 2 years ago, the average was 365 to 367. I'm not saying that $4 or whatever it is now, that the long-term goals that we're trying to accomplish in the Middle East, I'm not saying it's not worth it.
All right, well, energy prices just keep going up and up and up, and the Iran war has no end in sight. So let's check in with these oil prices. Oil prices have reached their highest levels overnight since the Iran war began, with Brent crude topping $126 per barrel before pulling back. And the average gas price was at $4.30 a gallon as of this morning, a jump of more than 7 cents from Wednesday and more than $1 above the 3.18 average from a year ago. And as you might expect, inflation overall just keeps going up and up and up. So the core personal consumption expenditures price index, which excludes food and energy, accelerated a seasonally adjusted 0.3% for the month, pushing the 12-month inflation rate to 3.2%. So core inflation hits its highest level since November of 2023, and including the volatile gas and groceries components saw higher readings, with the monthly gain at 0.7% and the annual rate hitting 3.5%. And in other economic news, we learned today that the national GDP increased by 2% in the first quarter of this year, and that is more than last quarter when GDP only rose by 1.5%. But the catch is that artificial intelligence investments is disproportionately contributing to that GDP growth. So business spending and investment drove much of the gains in the first quarter, contributing 1.5 percentage points to the total 2% GDP growth. Still, CapEx spending outside of AI-related expenditures remains more muted. And economist Heather Long put it all into perspective a little bit. She said, this is a split screen economy. Companies and investors involved in AI are on fire. Meanwhile, middle and moderate income households are struggling with high gas prices and inflation that's back at the hottest levels in 3 years. And there's one more piece of news that I wanna add in before we get to you, Cenk. Jobless claims, or the number of people who are filing for unemployment benefits, just hit a historic low. Initial claims fell by 26,000 to 189,000 in the week ended April 25, according to the Labor Department. That's data released today. The median forecast in a Bloomberg survey of economists called for 212,000 applications, and that is the lowest number of jobless claims since 1969, according to Bloomberg. And also, continuing claims, a proxy for the number of people receiving benefits, dropped to 1.79 million in the previous week, the lowest in 2 years. Cenk, I want to get your thoughts on this. I know you're not quite sold on those numbers, are you?
No, so look, I don't know if they're actually literally rigging the numbers, but I don't put it past them. Although I get that it's difficult. So maybe it's a spike up that's happening in a curious way before the crash. But I'll guarantee you a couple of things right now. We're gonna have an economic collapse. These not like all of the other numbers are disastrous. There's like one outlier saying, oh, everybody's getting hired. Everybody's getting hired. Every story we've done is like, Snap lays off tons of people, Disney lays off tons of people, and they're all bragging about AI efficiency, et cetera. So the massive unemployment is around the corner, and the rest of the economy is showing it. And oil is at $140 per barrel, or that's where it's spiked to. So look, I studied economics. All of these are giant flashing red lights, warning, warning, warning. Things are about to go really poorly, and yet somehow the markets are like, no, we're at near record highs in the stock market. These lunatics in Wall Street think, oh man, everything's going great. Yeah, AI is gonna lay off like 10 to 25% of all Americans. And yeah, we're about to restart bombing Iran. That's what Trump said, and we're gonna start bombing their infrastructure in the oil and gas fields, and then they bomb the oil and gas fields in the Gulf. This is gonna be an economic collapse that is gigantic. And they literally don't see it. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Now, the good news is about the kind of show we do is we tell you stuff ahead of time. We don't do like, oh, well, that happened, so we'll pretend we knew. No, I'm telling you right now. And if it turns out I'm wrong and there is no collapse and Trump keeps going and the markets were right and the next 3 years are golden, we'll come back and say, Cenk, you were so wrong. That AI collapse never happened. The war collapse never happened, right? And Steve Scalise was right. The Iranians were about to get nukes. Totally made up. Everything in this is, by the way, Israeli propaganda to get us to stay in the war because Israel wants us to stay in the war. And so, no, you're gonna see with your own eyes that we're about to hit an economic catastrophe. And when we do, all these guys are gonna look ridiculous. And I hope you throw all those bums out, all the incumbents, not just the Republicans. The Republicans should go first. They caused this collapse. They caused this awful situation. But a lot of the corporate Democrats went along with it and haven't challenged them at all. Throw out all the bums. You're about to feel massive economic pain. And when you do, know who brought it to you. All the corrupt politicians in this country, all the corrupt mainstream media, and most of all, Israel, who demanded that we go into this war and have these skyrocketing gas prices and all the inflation it's gonna lead to. You should all be furious with Israel for causing these calamities just because they wanted further land in Lebanon, further destruction and death in the Middle East. And they demanded that we do regime changes, create a civil war where maybe millions of people will die in Iran so that Israel can be the only regional superpower. Well, they opened up Pandora's box. And every ghoul and goblin in the economic world is about to fly out of it. And when it does, remember who did this to you. All right, we'll be back with the revolution. Thank you, yes. All right, guys, back on the revolution. So tomorrow we're gonna have Tom Steyer on at 8 o'clock. Make sure you check that out. So today we were on X, and before I get to the stuff we're gonna talk about, and we'll do a lot of interaction here with you guys. So write in your comments, tell me how you think we can get to a revolution. We need to change our government. I'm open to everybody. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals, I don't care, man. I don't care at all. And so like, I know, there's still people who are like Democratic partisans. I don't know that they're like people who are, anyway, they're so annoying. Now, it doesn't matter what the policies are. No, you have to support the team. Our team is Democrat. Yeah, okay, what did that team ever get you, man? Like, why are you a weirdo cheerleader for a team? It doesn't matter what the team does, okay? Like if you're a Democrat, theoretically you signed up to be a good guy that does all these things that we care about, that we think are the right solutions, right? But the Democratic Party never does that. Their leadership is disgustingly corrupt. if you're, I mean, I don't know, are there any cheerleaders for Chuck Schumer left in the country? I mean, probably the only ones left are the ones in media. You know that in DC, it's still considered sacrilege to say that Chuck Schumer shouldn't be the leader if the Democrats win the Senate, or really pass the 2026 election no matter what happens. There's only one Democrat who said that Chuck Schumer shouldn't be the leader anymore. I'll give you some time with it. Now, who do you think it is? Now, it could be AOC. She's from New York, very progressive, very against the war in Israel funding, from what I hear. And she might even run against Chuck Schumer. That would be a logical choice. Bernie Sanders, very progressive. No, not AOC, not Bernie Sanders. Rashida Tlaib, that makes sense. Nope. Ro Khanna, only one. Okay, because, oh my God, no, our colleagues. How dare you say Chuck Schumer shouldn't be the leader? Do you know how pro-Israel Chuck Schumer is? Yeah. Your stupid little club, I despise your club. All right, anyway. Can you tell I'm super mad today? And why am I mad? Like, all the gaslighting on top of the injustice. It's injustice plus gaslighting that drives me out of my mind, okay? So I'm totally fine off air, but when I get into these stories and I start doing them, and I see sons of bitches in Washington all saying that the Israelis are the good guys and the Palestinians and the Lebanese and the Iranians are the terrorists. And did anybody tell you in mainstream media why Hamas and Hezbollah attack Israel? They make it seem like, they don't make it seem like, they literally say, oh, it's because they hate Jews. They're disgusting anti-Semites. They attack poor Israel for no reason. What a bunch of liars. No, there's a very good reason why they attack Israel. Doesn't mean they should kill civilians, and I'm against that. I'm against it when they do it, I'm against it when Israel does it. Now, of course, everyone else on cable news is only against it when Hamas and Hezbollah do it, but when Israel does it, they're like, bravo, bravo, wonderful terrorism, we love you, Israel, okay? How does anybody watch TV without vomiting like nonstop? Okay, do you know that they took Anna off of CNN? You remember how she was on CNN a bunch of times? She said it the other day. They're like, no more. Why? She criticized Israel somewhere else, and some Zionist thug, some Gestapo at CNN was like, oh, someone has criticized Israel somewhere in the world. Ban them! But by the way, I don't control the media. But get her off the air. She's not allowed to criticize Israel. She didn't even do it on the show. Shut up, don't let her ever be on, right? CNN, what a bunch of losers. What a bunch of pathetic propagandists. Show me otherwise. Oh no, let me guess. I'm the bad guy. And the Israelis are the good guys, right? Bunch of terrorist sympathizers. Almost every cable news host is a terrorist sympathizer. They love Israel's terrorism and they try to hide it from you. Okay, in fact, that goes to our first ever X comment. We were on X today. I don't know, are we still on X? I don't know. But we're trying it as an experiment, and then we'll see if we do it more. But this is kind of historic. Carmen Galarza, sorry for butchering your name, when you're the first ever X commenter live on the show, said, I absolutely don't understand this. The citizens of this country are literally blind. Do they think they're watching a cartoon, that this is all fake? Are they absolutely that hateful towards immigrants? Anybody that's not them? Oh, yeah, but why are we blind, Carmen? That's the interesting question. That's why I'm so mad at mainstream media. Because they're the ones who blinded you on purpose. So on Fox News, they tell you, oh, your real problems aren't from super rich billionaires like Rupert Murdoch who buy all the politicians and force them to do whatever they want, whatever the donors want. No, your problem is that immigrant that just walked in. Even though he has 75 cents on him, he's rigging all the rules. He's your enemy. And you know he's brown? Oh, he's a bad guy. He has all the power. Not Murdoch, not Miriam Adelson. No way. Not Paul Singer, not Daniel Loeb, not Mark Rowan. No. That guy, oh my God, he's up to $1.25. I bet he rigs all the rules. Okay, so that's immigrants. And then of course on Israel, don't get me started, right? Oh, the guy doing the slaughtering, That's the good guy. The kids that are getting slaughtered, terrorists, they say. You guys look like demons, okay? I'm talking about the cable news anchors. And by the way, don't get it twisted that that's what they're always gonna say. Oh, there's an anti-Semitic. No, I mean, almost all the cable news anchors, the overwhelming majority of whom are not at all Jewish. Okay, but they go out there and they're like, oh, Rachel Maddow, oh, I'm getting $25 million. Yes, I don't know what Israel is. I'll never talk about it. Israel, what name so? I don't know. Chuck Schumer's still in favor of Israel? Oh, Chuck Schumer, wonderful. Chuck Schumer, yeah, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they're so good. They're so good. Where's my check? I got $25 million? Okay, good. I mean, look, let's be frank, right? Tucker is now saying it out loud that when he was at Fox News, he didn't tell the truth. Why? He kind of hints at this, doesn't say it outwardly, but I think he was getting paid $20 million a year. That's why you don't tell the truth, because they pay you $20 million to do propaganda, not to do the news. Okay, do you think we're getting $20 million a year? No, we are not. Okay, I assure you we are not. Israel supporters are doing everything to take the oxygen out of the room in this network. So destroy everyone in media who opposes Israel, but we don't control anything. That's a very offensive. Okay, me supporting the slaughter of 23,000 children, not offensive. You pointing it out, very offensive. Don't you have to, come on, the most important thing in this world is German feelings. I mean, you're offending the poor Germans by saying they're doing a Holocaust. Oh, I'm sorry, the Israelis for doing a genocide. Got that mixed up. You're not allowed to say that, that's also anti-Semitic. Yeah, I know. We're not allowed to say anything, right? Well, kiss my ass, okay? Until you find a way to destroy this network, which they're trying super hard to do, I'm gonna keep on saying it. And even if you do destroy us, I'm gonna get back on the air and I'm gonna say it somewhere else. And then I'm gonna say it somewhere else. So you're not gonna be able to stop me, okay? And so, and then they're like, I don't know why people are upset with us. I don't know, they must hate Jews. They woke up this morning and decided to hate Jews. No, nobody hated Jews until you guys kept equating genocide with Jews. You've done more harm, you've actually ironically created 10 billion times more anti-Semitism by calling everyone anti-Semites, by advocating the slaughter of innocent people, and then say, no, we did it for Jewish people. No, you didn't. Most Jewish people in this country don't even agree with you. But there's a couple of guys, a couple of dozen people that are super wealthy who are monsters. Total, utter monsters. They're not just terrorist sympathizers, they fund the terrorism. Larry Ellison sent $16, $17 million to the IDF to murder more Palestinians. I mean, imagine if somebody sent $17 million to Hamas, so for a job well done. I mean, they'd be in prison, right? We'd arrest them for being a terrorist. But Larry Ellison sends it to a group that has killed 100 times the civilians that Hamas has. And we go, bravo, here's TikTok, here's CBS, here's CNN, buy all of our media. You heard Ryan Grimm. In Washington, they think, they've gotten to a point where they're like, okay, we see that Israel has some slight influence in the media. But you guys, you haven't lived in DC, most of you. I live there, I go back there all the time. It is the thickest bubble you will ever see in your life. The people inside there are like out of a mental asylum and they have no idea. So it's like, you walk into a mental asylum and somebody thinks they're Elvis and the other guy thinks he's Charles Manson or whatever they think, right? That's exactly how Washington is. They're like, oh, there's that esteemed senator. He's such an important and wonderful person. Yes. Oh, Israel's the greatest, most moral country in the world. And they don't realize that they are literally acting like lunatics. And then when you tell them, the rest of the country hates you guys. They're like, I know, the rest of the country are the worst, aren't they? The unwashed masses. Like, hey, it says in a poll that mainstream media polls at 9%. That means over 90% of the country thinks you're a bunch of assholes, right? And they're like, I know, that's why the people are so bothersome and meddlesome. They need to be re-educated. Okay, so that's what I think of you guys. I think you guys are the worst people on earth. Okay, gee, I wonder why they shunned me. They should shun me. By the way, there's plenty of people who are super friendly, like don't get me wrong. But there's actually a relatively smaller group. But literally everyone who shunned me worked in mainstream media, okay? And I'm thrilled about it, right? He doesn't even love the terrorists in Israel. I bet he's bothered by children dying. I shun him. Okay, William in Gabe's World wrote in on Super Chat. Cenk, I love you and Sean Ryan's conversation. You know, you and Anna moved me from MAGA light or the MAGA lies. Hard to tell that last part, but I see all the BS now from him. Thanks. That's amazing, man. Thank you. I was told that we couldn't move anybody who voted for Trump. I was told that they were all in a cult. I was told that we shouldn't even try and that we're bad guys for trying. No, don't appeal to independents. They're evil. They're gonna put you in concentration camps. Don't appeal to the right wing. You'll never move a single one of them. No, let's just lose elections. Let's just be stupid and lose elections. Don't try to appeal to any Americans. No, only appeal to the super duper left that like has 13 people online, and that's how we'll win elections. Some people still think that. I mean, despite everything that's happened, you talk to, like that now they're a dwindling group of left-wing hosts. They pretend to be left-wing. It's weird though, like a lot of them, there's weird crossovers. Some of them are really super left-wing, but they have like these ludicrous thoughts that if you hate everyone else in the world, somehow you'll win elections, and you should call them all sorts of dirty names and all that, whatever, right? There's that group. Then there's the partisans, and sometimes there's weird overlaps, right? And like the partisan guys are like, oh yeah, if we just lie about how great Democrats are, and then we'll be able to trick them into voting for us. Why don't you get the Democrats to actually be Democrats? Why don't you actually go to all the voters and say all the wonderful things you're gonna do and then do them? I know these are outrageous ideas. Okay, the Breaker of Walls says Mills will run as a third-party campaign to stop Graham and get Collins over the finish line, mark my words. Brother, I'm gonna try to remember that you wrote that in, okay? And you remind me if I don't remember and you were right. Because that's a hell of a prediction. I wouldn't go that far. But if she does that, one, I actually don't think it'll work. I mean, if she does that, is there really any Democrats who are stupid enough to vote for her, to peel away votes from Plantner so that Collins can win? Is there any Democrats that are that pathetic? I mean, after all this, maybe, but I don't think it'll be a big number. But I mean, that would be treachery beyond description. And so if I've underestimated Democratic leadership treachery, then my bad, okay? But you've gotten past me in how awful you think they are. So I'm gonna get back to more comments in a second, but speaking of which, we had planned this segment for you guys. We did a lot of it on the Young Turks too, but so you know Janet Mills dropped out today. I just wanna remind you guys of a couple of things. So we'll give you that quote again from Chuck Schumer on this from The Hill. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on Tuesday endorsed Maine Governor Janet Mills. This is from the past. This is one I read you earlier. We think that Janet Mills is the best candidate to retire Susan Collins, Schumer said Tuesday at a press conference. She's a tested two-term governor, and the people of Maine have an enormous amount of affection and respect for her. I love that quote every time. At the time, Janet Mills was winning 47-37. So, hey, maybe the world of respect and affection. And as we showed you earlier, 64-29 now. So he was right, Mills is way ahead. Oh no, I'm sorry. Plantner is at 64, Mills is at 29, and Mills dropped out today because apparently the people of Maine did not have an enormous amount of affection and respect for her. The people of Maine were desperate for any human being that wasn't a corrupt politician like Janet Mills or Susan Collins. And the minute you showed up with a human, they were like, oh, that is as the Ferengi would say in Star Trek, that is a human. Okay, we will choose the human over you corporate robots. The only reason why they picked Janet Mills for governor is because they didn't have any other choice. All the corporate media told them, no, she is the respected this, that, and the other thing. You all have to vote for her. Guys, don't lose track of the good news. The good news is, are you kidding me? Now the voters are in open rebellion. Look at what just happened in that race. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. The entire establishment told everyone in Maine, you have to vote for Janet Mills. The other guy's a Nazi. He has some tattoo that's like the most obscure tattoo in the world. That's a Nazi tattoo, a Nazi communist, Bolshevik fascist. And in the past, guys, if you're new to this and you're young, that stuff would have worked like a charm. You would be shocked at how well that worked. That would have eliminated him immediately, because there was no online media. Nobody would, people wouldn't have gotten the truth from him. They would have just seen him for 5 minutes on TV and they'd be like, okay, is it true that you're a Nazi or a communist? Which one is it? Well, I'm neither. Oh, shut up, you Nazi. Okay, tell me what you are gonna do, you commie. And that's how it would have gone, and they would have buried him. But now Mills got buried. Okay, so Pete Hegseth goes to Congress yesterday. They showed this to you guys on the show yesterday, and he goes up there and he's just saying his dumb things as he always does, like, yo, we are strong men. We did push-ups off of each other's asses the other day, okay? And we're so strong, and we murder innocent civilians all the time. And we saw a fisherman and we murdered him. We're so strong. Let's go. I'll do the, you know. I'm picturing him doing push-ups on another guy's ass. Anyway, yeah. So Ro Khanna asked him, hey, did you calculate how much this might cause in economic costs to the average American? We don't mean the cost of the war, which you also didn't calculate, but we mean the cost of gas prices and inflation and all those things, and how we, the average American, has to pay that. So did you at least calculate, hey, if we go into the war, the war is going to cost this much, and the economic consequences are going to cost this much, but that's okay, because helping our beloved special ally is worth it. Okay, look at this fun thing happening right now. So do we have a guest? No, not a guest. Oh, we have Desat. Oh, okay, let's watch.
Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that opportunity.
I would simply ask you what you're playing gotcha questions about domestic things. I'm not.
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased cost.
Why won't you answer what it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
I give you that, sir. But let me.
What would it cost? What would you pay to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb? What would you pay?
I reclaim my time. Do you not know? You had no one do the analysis of what the increased cost of gas and food on the American people are going to be?
What is the cost of Iran holding that straight at issue with nuclear weapons?
It's $631 billion, which means it's an increase of $5,000 a year for American households.
So Hegseth keeps saying, what would you pay to prevent a nuclear bomb? First of all, yeah, we heard this horse crap before, I know. Saddam's got weapons of mass destruction, the Israelis told me. The Ayatollah is going to build nukes, even though the Ayatollah has a fatwa that said you're not allowed to build nukes. But the Israelis told me, but that's okay, put that aside. He said, what would you pay? No, Secretary Hegseth, the question was, what would you pay? Did you do the calculation of what you would pay to do this war? And of course, the dumbass did not do that calculation, so Ro Khanna did the calculation for him. It's going to cost the average American $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year, so that Israel can have more of Lebanon and Israel can murder more people in Iran, so they're not allowed to help the Palestinians. Oh, I never got back to it. Why did Hamas, or in media, they never tell you why Hamas and Hezbollah attack Israel? It's not because they hate Jews. It's because Israel is occupying 5.5 million Palestinians and oppressing and humiliating and killing them every single day. But oops, we forgot to tell you why. Oh, did we leave out Israel's brutal, disgusting, fascist occupation of the Palestinians? No, it is because the Palestinians hate Jews. They are such terrible people. It is all the Palestinians' fault. We should finance their murder. Okay, yeah. No, Hamas and Hezbollah are doing it because of Israel's super evil occupation of the Palestinians. Doesn't make the terrorism right, as a method and as a tactic, but there is a very real reason why they do it. And anyone telling you otherwise is obviously lying to you and is a terrorist sympathizer, a genocide denier, etc. And one of my favorite things is when people get upset at my name calling. You guys started the name calling. So the people with all their crocodile tears about, oh yeah, everybody's an anti-Semite. You called me a name? What do you mean? I tried to ruin your life by calling you names, but you're not allowed to call me names. Yeah, we are. Yeah. All right. Here's the wonderful Rebellion PAC candidates running in your neck of the woods. Go support them. Shoykat Chakrabarti, his primary is in June 2nd. So this stuff's coming up, guys, because we're almost in May now. So it's about a month away, okay? And Shoykat has nearly taken the lead in that race, depending on the poll you're looking at. That's California 11, that's Nancy Pelosi's old seat. He's running against Scott Wiener. Here, pause for a second. Scott Wiener is a guy who passed the law in California saying that high school kids have to learn that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitism, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it. Okay, thank you for the Israeli propaganda in California. Why do we even have to, like, if you're a national legislator, I get, okay, the Israelis bribed you, whatever, and you represent Israel, I got it. But why do you have to do propaganda in state by state? Like, where's the big national interest? Nope. The kids must be brainwashed into believing that Israel's the greatest thing. Okay, and by the way, what else did Scott Wiener do? He went around trying to get university presidents fired for allowing a pro-Palestinian protest. He's like, it's a college campus, and you're letting them have their own opinion, and you're letting them fight against a genocide? This is outrageous. That's the guy he's running against. You want to guess who all the establishment guys have endorsed? Of course, Scott Wiener. They're like, oh, he's a wonderful Democrat. They asked in a debate, are you in favor of the genocide? Are you ready to call what Israel has done a genocide? And he had one of these. They had these placards, I think, and he's like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's like, I don't know. I want to win the election, and I know I have to call it a genocide, but I love Israel. And finally, he couldn't do it, and he said, no, it's not a genocide. And then after the debate, his consultants are like, bro, you're gonna lose the election if you say it's not a genocide. Everybody will know that when you go to Congress, you're gonna totally betray them and work for Israel. And he's like, okay, fine. I have talked to my consultants, and I now think it is a genocide. Yeah, it is a genocide. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean it. I don't mean it, donors. I don't mean it. Anyway, so if you're in California 11, Shoykat's the easiest vote you'll ever have in your life. And unlike, all right, I'll leave it alone. Ro Khanna is also up on June 2nd. He should, win comfortably. They did run some lackey against him. The tech bros are super upset at Ro because he wants to raise taxes on the rich in California. So they funded some loser who's did fraud of some sort, and he's like, oh, Ro Khanna is corrupt. Dude, you were busted for fraud. Come on, this is embarrassing. Yes, but I have millions of dollars from the tech bros, and they would like to destroy Ro Khanna. All right, good, just go home. All right, it's super humiliating. Anyway, Josh Turk is a Senate candidate in Iowa. That's super important. He could win Iowa. He's got to win that primary. If they put up a corporate person, then they'll have no chance at all. If you put up a regular Democrat in Iowa, there's a 0% chance he'll win. So please, Josh Turk in Iowa. Audrey Denny's in California 1. That's up in kind of rural California. Audrey's got such a great story. Look, it's a super tough district. It's very red, believe it or not, in northern rural California. But she won an award for best carcass in high school. Because it's so rural, they're all farmers. And so they have a best carcass award for who skins a cow the best. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. But she told us the story when she was here. She's great. She's a real populist. Graham Plantner, of course, in Maine, but that primary is now over June 9th. Go out and vote. Make sure that he wins. Hartzell Gray is in Missouri. Very progressive guy. August 4th, that one. And Randy Bryce, Iron Stash, is on August 11th. So make sure you're going out there and supporting those folks. I'll read a couple more comments just for fun. Foy Roj Kabir wrote in on YouTube member section. I love these crossover shows. Ryan Grimm for president. Hey, Ryan, you got one vote there. Okay, we're on the board. Balk says there's no world where Harris gets elected and doesn't say how high when Israel asks her to jump. Of course, Kamala Harris has no chance at all of not working for Israel. She will 1000% work for Israel. She's a joke. Two Verdi, no, she's really good. You know her background. Yeah, I don't care about anybody's background. Okay, Two Verdi one says, honestly, the worst thing I can call someone is acting like Israel. Yeah, that's factual. Mary Ellen Van Buren says, at least with Tucker/Green, we can get the Israeli lobby and Zionists out of our government. And if a corporate Democrat runs, I would vote for them. I mean, that's where we are, guys. That's not me saying it. There's people that are watching this going like, I'm so sick of the corporate Democrats. As much as I disagree with Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene on like 200 issues, at least they're not Zionist zombies. I mean, Democrats can't clear the lowest bar in history, ever. They're like, oh, being smarter than Donald Trump can't clear it. Being more moral than Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, given their history, can't clear it. Okay, God. Okay, I gotta remind myself, like I'm reminding you guys, we're beating them. We're beating them. We're beating them everywhere. Shoykot went from 3rd to 1st. Well, some polls he's within 2 points. I forget if there was a poll but he's almost caught up, right? But he was so far down, right? And who else? Graham Plattner, massive. You saw Tallarico, same thing. All the populists, Abdul El Said. Oh, me go with Hassan Piker, up 15 points, 3rd to 1st. Keep yapping, mainstream media. Keep yapping, Israel supporters. You're doing nothing but helping us, okay? By the way, today, last thing, I could read comments all day. You guys are wonderful. Sorry if I didn't get to your comments. Okay, anyways, your comments are fun and great. But last thing, hey guys, do we have the clip of Lawler, the last segment we were gonna do on TYT we didn't get to? Lawler and what's his face? Gottheimer going after Hassan and Candace Owens. We don't have it, okay. So I'll just tell you, Lawler is a Republican, Gottheimer, let's laugh, is a Democrat. Gottheimer is like the most pro-corporate guy, like just exactly what you think of the worst politician on earth is who Gottheimer is, okay? So he's a guy posing as a Democrat in New Jersey, does not remotely a Democrat, okay? So today they did a press conference. Now, okay, here we go. They're talking about the real danger in this country. Danger. Is it that we started a war that is going to cost us $5,000 each? Is it got a lot of Americans killed, dozens of planes shot? No, that's not the danger. Is it a brutal genocide where 23,000 children were slaughtered, murdered? No, that's not the danger. Hassan Piker is the danger. Did you see what he said? He said a wrong sentence. And Candace Owens, danger. Okay, yeah, no. Mike Lawler, Josh Gottheimer are the danger, okay? They are terrorist sympathizers who want to rob your money and send it to a bunch of terrorists that run Israel so they could murder more innocent civilians. And they're trying to distract you by going, oh, those guys said something. The problem isn't Israel. The problem is the people criticizing Israel. See, Candace and Hassan, they criticize Israel in the wrong way. No, that's the real problem. Worse, I'm offended. I'm offended. Okay, roll up your offense really tight, and you know where you want to put it? Okay. I want to keep going so bad, but I can't. Okay, I love you guys. Let's keep the revolution going. Steyer's tomorrow, and I want to be here, guys, on those nights where the elections are, especially the 2026 election. Oh my God. If all these, if our guys, if our populists win, Platner wins, Tallarico wins, Ojeda wins, Turk wins, etc. Shoika wins. Oh my God, what a beautiful, beautiful night that would be. So let us again, for the first time in a long time, whisper of a dream. Because the numbers are showing us it's real. All right, love you, see you tomorrow.